11 most mysterious archaeological discoveries on Earth that top scientists still can't explain. Hello, welcome to the Ancient History Channel. Dear friends, have you ever wondered what lies behind the massive stones of the Great Pyramid of Giza? Is it the skillful hands of humans, or some supernatural force that science still cannot explain? Ancient Egypt, a land of powerful pharaohs, mummies, curses, and secrets that have remained unsolved for thousands of years, has always fascinated anyone with a love for history. But you know what? Egypt isn't the only place on Earth hiding mysteries. All over the world, from the deserts of the Middle East to the jungles of South America and even the seas of China, archaeologists have uncovered countless discoveries that astonish humanity. From strange ruins that leave scientists scratching their heads, to skeletal remains with non-human features, to artifacts that defy every known law of time, and even mummies that, despite being hundreds or even thousands of years old, remain remarkably well preserved without any embalming processes. The deeper we dig into the past, the more it seems that history is far from simple. Some civilizations once flourished brilliantly, but now only faint traces remain buried in dust. Some constructions are so advanced that even modern technology cannot replicate them. And this is exactly what makes archaeology so fascinating. So, in recent years, what have archaeologists discovered that has sent shivers through the world? Will these mysteries help us understand our ancestors, or will they only deepen our bewilderment about human history? Join me in today's video, the 11 most mysterious archaeological discoveries on Earth, as we uncover the secrets hidden deep beneath the ground. Now, without further delay, let's jump right into the first discovery. The beauty mummy still fresh after over 2,000 years. One morning in July 2002, at a construction site in Songlong Village, Haichao District, Lianyungang City, Jiangsu Province, China, workers made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the Chinese archaeological community. The story began when a bulldozer operator accidentally struck an ancient coffin with his excavator, but when the soil was cleared away, the entire site fell silent. Before their eyes lay an ancient tomb buried deep underground, remarkably well preserved after thousands of years. Soon after, the police and city museum staff arrived to secure the site and conduct a survey. According to experts, the tomb dates back to the late Han Dynasty, over 2,000 years ago. Strangely, aside from some minor damage to the walls, the entire tomb structure remained intact, from the building materials to the tightly sealed precious wooden coffin. When the excavation was complete, the coffin was transported to the Lianyungang Museum for examination. The moment it was opened is one that will likely remain etched in the memory of all who witnessed it. Inside the coffin was not only a body, but also a large amount of thick, yellow-brown liquid. Even more astonishing, the body was remarkably well preserved. The woman's skin was soft, her muscles still elastic, and even her nerves and internal organs were nearly intact. A phenomenon almost unimaginable for a corpse over 2 millennia old. Subsequent analyses determined that she was a woman around 40 years old, approximately 5 feet 3 inches tall. Next to the body, archaeologists found a bronze seal engraved with the words Lang Hui Ping, likely the name of the tomb's occupant. Based on her clothing, the coffin material, and the burial items, it is believed she belonged to the noble class living in wealth and prestige. By December of the same year, Professor Zhao Chengwen from the Chinese Academy of Forensic Science used facial reconstruction technology to recreate her likeness. The result amazed everyone. A round, kind face, thick eyebrows, large eyes, and a small mouth. A beauty described as a peerless woman of ancient times. Yet the greatest mystery was not her appearance, but the secret behind her body's extraordinary preservation over 2,000 years. Scientists discovered that the coffin was surrounded by more than 22,000 pounds of charcoal, along with layers of silica, aluminum oxide, iron oxide, and thick soil, forming a natural barrier against bacterial invasion. Remarkably, the viscous liquid inside the coffin was slightly alkaline and contained hemoglobin, leading experts to believe it might be the key factor preventing decomposition. However, the question remains, was this substance placed in the coffin intentionally, or did it form naturally during the decomposition process? To this day, no one knows. Some experts also note that signs in the tomb suggest the burial was conducted in a hurry, as if some urgent event had abruptly interrupted the process. So what truly happened to Lang Hui Ping? Did she die of natural causes, or was she caught up in some plot during the turbulent final years of the Han Dynasty? And most importantly, how did her body survive, defying both time and nature? These questions remain unanswered, making Lang Huiping's tomb one of the most extraordinary archaeological mysteries in Chinese history. The 4,800-year-old mass grave in Poland reveals a brutal massacre. In human history, some archaeological discoveries do more than reveal the past. They send chills down your spine, showing that prehistoric humans could be shockingly ruthless. One such discovery is a 4,800-year-old mass grave unearthed near the village of Košice in southern Poland, which tells the tragic story of a large family mercilessly slaughtered. In 2011, during an excavation in the area, archaeologists uncovered 15 sets of human remains buried together in a single ancient pit. What astonished them was that there were no adult men among the victims. All were women and children, and their bones showed evidence of skull fractures and sword or axe blows, proof they suffered agonizing deaths. Experts believe this was a large-scale massacre that occurred while the family's men were away hunting or tending the fields. When they returned, they likely could only silently gather the bodies of their wives and children and bury them in positions that hugged and held one another, as if still trying to protect them in death. One middle-aged mother was buried beside her two young sons, while a woman around 30 to 35 years old lay next to her teenage daughter and her 5-year-old son. The scene left the archaeological team deeply moved. Nearly 5 millennia later, maternal love and family bonds remained visible in the positions of the bodies. Even more poignant, DNA analysis showed that all of them were related, belonging to a large farming family of the globular amphora culture, which existed in Central Europe around 3,400 to 2,800 BCE. They were peaceful people, living off agriculture and livestock, with elaborate burial customs that included grave goods, jewelry, and animal bones. But their fate changed forever when a warlike tribe arrived, the corded ware people, believed to have perpetrated this horrific massacre. Research published in the Journal of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS, indicates that the corded ware people were linked to the Yamnaya, considered the most violent group of the Stone Age. The Yamnaya emerged around 3,300 to 2,600 BCE from the Eastern European steppes, known for their exceptional physical strength, muscular builds, and advanced combat skills. They lived on meat and milk, migrated frequently, and conquered other cultures with fire and blood. Scholars believe that the expansion of the Yamnaya sparked waves of violence across Europe, wiping out peaceful tribes like the globular amphora. Some researchers even suggest that the Yamnaya may have killed the men and enslaved or raped the women to preserve their bloodline, a truly barbaric act if this is accurate. Importantly, evidence of similar brutality is not limited to Poland. In Uhlau, Germany, archaeologists found multiple graves of women and children showing similar signs of violent death. Tooth isotope analysis suggests that these individuals were not local residents, but possibly captured slaves or prisoners. Some had fatal injuries, indicating they were ambushed and killed in retaliatory attacks. From Poland to Germany, from Košice to Uhlau, these ancient burial pits are more than archaeological evidence. They are a bloody indictment of the Stone Age, when humans had just learned farming but were already killing each other for territory. Even today, looking back at these remains, the questions remain unanswered. What would the men have done after witnessing such horrors? Or were they themselves swept into the endless cycle of violence among ancient tribes? One grave, but within it lies the tragedy, warfare, and darkest corners of human history. A sobering reminder of the brutality our ancestors could unleash. The 4,500-year-old powerful woman mummy in Peru. While the world remains fascinated by Egyptian mummies, on the other side of the globe, in the distant lands of Peru, archaeologists have made a discovery that has left the scientific community stunned. A female mummy over 4,500 years old was unearthed in Aspero, an ancient fishing town that was part of the Corral civilization, widely regarded as the oldest city in South America. What makes this discovery extraordinary is not just its age, but the status of the woman buried inside, a powerful figure whose influence is still awe-inspiring today. According to experts, the woman was between 40 and 50 years old at the time of her death and was buried in a prominent area, likely reserved for individuals of high social standing. Inside the tomb, archaeologists found numerous valuable artifacts, clear evidence that she was far from ordinary. 4 bone fragments were engraved with designs of birds and monkeys, symbolizing the connection between humans, nature, and the spiritual world. Nearby was a small vessel containing plant fragments and seeds, possibly offerings used in ritual ceremonies. Most remarkably, researchers discovered a beaded necklace with a pendant made from spondylus shell, a rare shell found only in the northern coastal waters of Ecuador, hundreds of miles from Aspero. This indicates long-distance trade and interaction between regions, providing important evidence that the Corral civilization had a developed commercial network long before the powerful Inca Empire emerged thousands of years later. According to Dr. Ruth Shady, director of the Corral Archaeological Site, the artifacts found in the tomb not only demonstrate wealth, but also highlight the special role of women in ancient society. At a time when many other civilizations considered women subordinate, in Corral they appear to have held leadership positions and had a voice in their communities. Dr. Shady believes that the woman buried in this tomb may have been a spiritual leader or a religious ritual manager, serving as a bridge between humans and the gods. Furthermore, near the ceremonial area adjacent to the tomb, archaeologists found 8 flutes made from animal bones, evidence that music played a sacred role in the spiritual life of the people of Aspero. The melodies produced by these flutes may have guided the spirits of the deceased or been played to honor deities during solemn rituals. Astonishingly, after more than 4 millennia, the woman's body has been preserved well enough for researchers to study her skeletal structure and even reconstruct her facial features. She does not possess the imposing appearance of a queen, but exudes serenity and dignity, as if resting peacefully amid the sands of time. Therefore, it is fair to say that this discovery is more than a mere archaeological find. It is living evidence of the role and influence of women in Corral's ancient society. These women were not merely caretakers or childbearers. They contributed to social development, religious practice, and even political power. Yet questions remain. Who was this powerful woman? What position did she hold in South America's oldest civilization? And beneath the sands of Aspero, are there other tombs of women who helped shape history, but whose stories remain unknown? These questions are still unanswered, awaiting archaeologists' discoveries. But one thing is certain. This 4,500-year-old tomb has changed the way we view women in the past, women who may have worked quietly behind the scenes, yet wielded a power that even time must bow to. 80 skeletons found handcuffed in an ancient Greek cemetery. In the heart of ancient Greece, the land that once gave birth to philosophy, art, and legendary heroes, archaeologists have uncovered a chilling mystery. 80 human skeletons buried deep underground, all with iron handcuffs still fastened around their wrists. This discovery has not only stunned researchers, but also evoked tales of bloodshed, power struggles, and rebellion from a distant past, where the line between hero and criminal was frighteningly thin. The site is the Phaleron Delta, an ancient cemetery located near what is now Athens, the capital of Greece. During construction for an opera house and a national library, workers inadvertently stumbled upon traces of a history buried for thousands of years. Beneath thick layers of soil, archaeologists found rows of skeletons in unusual positions, some lying straight, others with knees bent, and some even with mouths open, as if they were screaming in their final moments. All were handcuffed, all died in similar positions, and all showed signs of the same method of execution, indicating that this was not an isolated crime, but a carefully organized mass execution. What perplexed scientists was that these skeletons did not resemble criminals or slaves. On the contrary, they were young, strong, and physically fit, suggesting they may have been warriors or nobles. The neat arrangement and careful burial also indicate that, although executed, they were treated with a certain degree of respect. So who were they, and why were they executed while bound? Dr. Stella Chrysolaki, who led the excavation, insists that this could not have been ordinary punishment. All the victims were executed in the same manner, and this uniformity points to a political or religious execution, she explained. Her statement has sparked numerous hypotheses, the most notable being the theory of Cylon's rebellion. Cylon was an Athenian noble and also a champion in the ancient Olympic Games. Historical records suggest that around 632 BCE, he attempted to overthrow the Athenian government with the help of his father-in-law, the tyrant of Megara. The coup failed. Cylon escaped, but his supporters were captured and executed en masse. These skeletons may very well be the loyal warriors who stood by Cylon until the end, dying handcuffed yet remaining faithful to their leader. However, this remains speculative. So far, there is no conclusive evidence linking them directly to Cylon. Archaeologists hope that DNA testing and anthropological analysis will help determine the connection between these bodies and the ancient communities around Athens. If confirmed, this would be the first solid evidence of one of the bloodiest coups in ancient Greece, a time when honor, belief, and power collided in turbulent ways. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is not only the political story behind it, but also how these people were buried. Though executed, they were not discarded or hastily interred. Someone, perhaps relatives or even enemies, showed them final respect, arranging them carefully in the earth, a silent farewell amid chaos. Standing before these skeletons, one cannot help but shiver and wonder, were these fallen heroes or merely victims of a brutal purge of power? No matter how mysterious the past may be, this discovery reminds us that history is not written only by victories, but also by blood, tears, and deaths that were never recorded. And who knows, beneath the cold soil of the Phaleron Delta, there may still be many secrets waiting to be unearthed. Untold stories of an ancient Greece that held not just glory, but human tragedy as well. The smoked tombs of Mount Timbak, where the dead still tell stories 1,000 years later. Hidden among the white clouds atop Mount Timbak in Benguet Province, over 200 miles north of Manila, Philippines, lies a dark cave that holds a story so eerie it sends shivers down anyone's spine. Deep inside the mountain, more than 3,900 feet underground, rests the final resting place of the fire mummies, the bodies of ancient Ibaloi people preserved through a mysterious ritual that has lasted for over a millennium. Just stepping into this place, you can feel the breath of time, as if the spirits themselves still linger in the haze of smoke. The Ibaloi, an indigenous people living in the mountains of northern Philippines, practiced a funeral custom that is rare anywhere in the world: smoking the dead. Unlike the Egyptians, they did not bury immediately, nor did they use resin or chemicals for mummification. Instead, the Ibaloi seated the deceased next to a fire and allowed the smoke to gradually permeate the skin and hair. Day after day, the smoke would dry the body, remove moisture, and prevent decomposition, transforming it into a fire mummy, a name both haunting and sacred, symbolizing the living's eternal reverence for the dead. This ritual could last for months, sometimes up to a year, until the body was completely dried and turned a distinctive dark bronze color. Afterwards, the mummies were placed in hand-carved wooden coffins and buried deep in the tombs hidden within Mount Timbak. Many of these bodies have remained undisturbed for over 1,000 years, preserved almost perfectly by the combination of time and smoke. Remarkably, the mummies still retain their original shapes, facial features, and even the tattoos on their arms and legs, almost as if the deceased had just closed their eyes yesterday. The story of the fire mummies might have seemed like legend until researchers discovered them in the 19th century. Today, some of the Ibaloi burial caves have been opened to the public, becoming a mysterious destination for archaeology enthusiasts eager to witness the legacy of a lost culture. Local people say that only the elders know the exact locations of approximately 80 sacred caves where the smoked souls rest and ancient rituals are quietly preserved. One notable witness was Edgar Allan Zeta Yep, 31, a young researcher passionate about ancient culture. On his trek up Mount Timbak, he was overwhelmed by what he saw. Edgar recounted, "The mummies were so perfectly preserved that I could see the tattoos on their skin, symbols that told the story and identity of the deceased." For him and many others, it was more than an archaeological discovery. It was a strange encounter with history, where the past still breathes, still observes the present through the smoke of 1,000 years. The Ibaloi practice of smoking bodies only ended when the Spanish colonizers arrived in the Philippines about 400 years ago. Under pressure from colonial authorities and religion, the ancient rituals, once seen as heretical, gradually disappeared. Yet deep within Mount Timbak, the fire mummies remain silently, defying time and reminding humanity of a culture that once burned bright, where fire, smoke, and soul merged into an eternal symbol of life after death. If you ever find yourself in Benguet, standing at the entrance of that shadowy cave, close your eyes and imagine. Beneath the rock, the echoes of smoke and fire from the ancient Eboloi may still resound, telling a world where death was never an end, but a journey to become smoke, returning to the mountains and forests. Who knows, in that moment you might discover something beyond your imagination. The 300-year-old Austrian priest mummy that defies the laws of nature. In the world of archaeology, full of strange and mysterious discoveries, some finds make your skin crawl, not out of fear, but because they are so astonishing they seem to defy the laws of nature. One such case is the story of the mummy of Austrian priest Franz Xaver Sidler von Rosenegg, who died in 1746, yet his body remains remarkably intact nearly 300 years later. This discovery astonished both scientists and local residents in Upper Austria at the time, and to this day, the mystery remains unsolved. The story begins in St. Thomas am Blasenstein, a small, peaceful town in the heart of Austria. In the old crypt of the local church, people found the nearly perfectly preserved body of a priest, affectionately nicknamed Leather Franzi by locals because he was buried in traditional leather lederhosen. No one expected that after centuries, his skin, clothing, and even his facial features would remain so well preserved, showing no signs of decay or decomposition. What makes this even more remarkable is that the priest was not mummified using any ancient preservation method. He was buried in a normal manner with no preservatives, no airtight coffin, and no resins or aromatics. Yet his body somehow self-mummified in a mysterious way, prompting scientists to wonder whether something in the crypt's environment or in his own body had protected it from the ravages of time. To investigate the mystery, Dr. Andreas Nerlich, along with renowned forensic experts Peter Hofer and Oliver Peschel from the University of Munich in Germany, conducted a 10-month study. Their analysis confirmed that Franz Xaver Sidler von Rosenegg died of tuberculosis, not epilepsy, as some earlier theories suggested. Evidence of lung and vascular damage clearly indicated this cause of death, but that wasn't the only surprise. When examining the lower abdomen of the mummy, researchers discovered a small round glass object inside the body. The purpose of this object remains unknown. Some hypotheses suggest it may have been a religious tool used by the priest, or perhaps a personal item he carried before his death. Without concrete evidence, this mystery remains unsolved, sparking ongoing curiosity and debate among archaeologists. Further analysis of the priest's bones and skin revealed that he had lived a relatively comfortable life without heavy physical labor. A small but fascinating detail was the discoloration of his teeth caused by tobacco, showing that he was a heavy smoker, a habit common among European nobility in the 18th century. Perhaps during moments of sermon preparation or prayer, he would sit quietly in a room, pipe in hand, letting smoke curl through the silent air of the old church. Today, the mummy of Franz Xaver Sidler von Rosenegg has been returned to the old crypt and is part of the historical tour at St. Thomas am Blasenstein. Visitors from around the world come not only to see a body that refuses to decay after 3 centuries, but also to witness firsthand the astonishing mysteries of nature, mysteries that even modern science has yet to fully explain. And perhaps that is the true allure of this discovery. Sometimes the mysteries of the world do not lie in the supernatural, but are hidden within humanity itself, in every corner of history, where time seems to have buried everything, yet silently preserves untold stories. The headless skeletons of a mother and child in gold-trimmed fur on the Altai Mountains. In the Taldur II burial site of the ancient Pazyryk civilization in the icy Altai Mountains of Siberia, where snow blankets the landscape year-round and the wind cuts like a knife, archaeologists have discovered a grave containing the remains of a mother and child. What stunned everyone was that both were headless. Their bodies lay neatly in the frozen earth, draped in fur coats adorned with gold, yet their skulls were found at a distance from the bodies, as if someone had deliberately separated them. From that moment, a 2,500-year-old mystery emerged, challenging all human understanding of ancient burial rituals. According to the archaeologists, the remnants of the fur garments were still clearly visible, proving that the deceased were buried in luxurious, warm clothing, likely intended to keep their souls warm on their journey to the afterlife. In Pazyryk belief, death was not an end, but the beginning of a long journey, so the dead were carefully prepared, from their clothing to their personal belongings. In this grave, besides the 2 skeletons, researchers also found 2 small bronze mirrors, fragments of pottery, and numerous intact gold sheets, likely once attached to the garments as symbols of power or high social status. Yet the most perplexing question remains: why were both headless? According to Dr. Nikita Konstantinov of Gorno-Altaysk University, headless burials were once a wartime custom in this region. In ancient times, when two tribes fought, the victors often decapitated their enemies to demonstrate power, and headless graves were typically reserved for the defeated. But the case of this mother and child is entirely different. Their careful burial, gold-trimmed clothing, and finely crafted grave goods all indicate that they were neither prisoners nor enemies. This has led scientists to propose several hypotheses. Some suggest that the grave may have been raided, with the heads removed to prevent vengeful spirits, a belief present in many ancient cultures. However, there is no evidence of intrusion. No items were stolen, and everything in the grave remained intact, except for the heads of the mother and child, which disappeared mysteriously. If not theft, could this have been part of a special religious ritual or a mysterious sacrificial practice performed by the Pazyryk to protect their tribe? Archaeologists note that the Pazyryk civilization, which existed over 2,500 years ago in the Altai Mountains, was one of the most advanced nomadic societies in ancient Siberia. They were renowned for their carvings, gold jewelry, and especially their practice of ice mummification, which preserved bodies almost perfectly for millennia. However, there has never been a documented case of headless child burials, making this discovery a unique phenomenon in Siberian archaeology. Despite plausible theories, none fully explain the mystery. Why were the mother and child decapitated? Who did it? And why were their skulls placed so far away? All remain unanswered. The fragments of gold, the fur coats, the small bronze mirrors, they seem to tell the story of a vanished era, where people revered beauty while believing in the supernatural power of death. Perhaps fully understanding what happened in this grave will require years of further study. For now, all that remains in the frozen Altai, beneath hardened earth and swirling mist, are the two headless bodies, silent, carrying the secrets of an ancient civilization that modern humans are still trying to unravel. The 2,100-year-old mummy of a Chinese noblewoman with intact skin and organs. Have you ever imagined a human being returning from the dead after more than 2,000 years? No? Then let me take you into a strange and fascinating story from the Han Dynasty, the glorious era of ancient China, where a noblewoman left an indelible mark on history. The story begins in 1972, when workers digging an escape tunnel on a hillside in Hunan, China, accidentally unearthed an ancient tomb. Little did they know that they had just stumbled upon one of the greatest archaeological mysteries in the world. It was the tomb of Lady Xin Jui, wife of Li Kang, a high-ranking official of the Han Dynasty. What stunned archaeologists was not only the age of the mummy, but the miraculous state of preservation that made it seem as if she had died just yesterday. Lady Xin Jui passed away at the age of 50. She lived in a prosperous period of the Han Dynasty, enjoying a luxurious and relatively sedentary lifestyle, but this also left her vulnerable to serious health conditions such as obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, and blocked arteries. These ailments ultimately caused her sudden death, but they left behind for posterity an invaluable legacy, a perfectly preserved mummy almost unbelievable in its condition. When archaeologists opened her coffin, they could hardly believe their eyes. Inside lay a mummy with soft, elastic skin, intact hair, eyelashes, and joints, and organs and blood vessels nearly perfectly preserved. From a small sample of blood remaining in her veins, experts even determined that her blood type was A. This unprecedented discovery raised countless questions about the mysterious embalming techniques of the ancient Han people. The extraordinary preservation was no accident. Lady Xin Jui had been wrapped in 20 layers of silk, placed inside 4 nested pine wood coffins, and covered with white clay and charcoal. All these protective layers acted as a shield against water and insects, allowing her body to remain unspoiled for more than 2 millennia. As with many noble tombs in China, Lady Xin Jui's tomb contained far more than a perfectly preserved body. It held an immense cultural treasure, over 100 sets of silk garments, 160 wooden figurines representing servants, and countless pieces of jewelry, all showcasing the extravagant and wealthy life of a Han Dynasty aristocrat. Each artifact tells its own story about her daily life, habits, and social status, allowing us to step into a vivid exhibition of the past. The mummy of Lady Shinjui is not merely a priceless archaeological find. It is also a reminder of the fragility of life, the endurance of history, and the legacies humans leave for future generations. After more than 2,000 years, she still lives on in the memory of those studying ancient culture, medicine, and the enduring mysteries of humanity. And that is no exaggeration. The terrifying flesh-eating coffins from the ancient town of Assos. Have you ever heard of a place where human bodies can decompose so rapidly that it only takes 40 days? This isn't a story I made up. It's 100% real, and it happens in Assos, an ancient town in Çanakkale province, Turkey. Here, archaeologists have uncovered some strange coffins that have baffled the world. Assos was founded by the Greeks around the 9th to 10th century BCE, located just about 7 miles from the Greek island of Lesvos as the crow flies. It was once a thriving cultural center, with the Temple of Athena built in 530 BCE, and Hermias, a disciple of the famous philosopher Plato, once ruled here, turning Assos into a bustling port. But after many invasions, from the Persians and Alexander the Great to the Roman Empire, Assos gradually shrank into a small fishing village with a population of about 2,000, as it is today. However, what makes Assos truly famous is not just its long history, but the terrifying flesh-eating stone coffins recently excavated by archaeologists. In Greek, these coffins are called sarkophagos, the origin of the word sarcophagus, meaning stone coffin. For centuries, the locals of Assos knew about their strange property. Any corpse placed inside would completely decompose in less than 2 months, leaving behind only an empty coffin. The ancient cemetery in Assos stretches from east to west across the town, though only the western portion has been excavated so far. The oldest graves contain large clay boat-shaped coffins dating back to the mid-7th century BCE, oriented eastward and sealed with a large stone. By the 5th century BCE, coffins were carved from andesite, a type of volcanic rock with smooth, undecorated surfaces, measuring about 6.5 feet long, 2.6 to 3 feet wide, and 2.6 to 3 feet high, weighing up to 6,600 pounds. During the Roman period, the coffins became more elaborate, featuring intricate carvings and inscriptions along their sides that recorded the names and details of the deceased. But the most terrifying aspect remains the speed at which the bodies inside decompose. In just 40 days, a fully grown human body can vanish entirely, leaving scientists scratching their heads in search of an explanation. Many hypotheses have been suggested, including the possibility that the tombs contained a significant amount of aluminum, a metal known to accelerate decomposition. Could the ancient Assos people have discovered that aluminum burns the flesh and added it to the coffins to speed up the process? Even so, there is still no concrete evidence, and the phenomenon remains a mystery. Today, Assos, a small fishing village, quietly holds secrets that modern science cannot fully explain, reminding us that history is not only a story of time, but also full of phenomena that inspire awe, astonishment, and yes, a little shiver down your spine. A 300-year-old mummy turns black in just a few hours. Have you ever wondered what happens when a centuries-old mummy is opened for the first time after hundreds of years of rest? In an ancient cemetery in Xiangcheng, Henan Province, China, archaeologists recently witnessed a scene that was both horrifying and astonishing. On October 10th, they excavated several coffins buried about 6.5 feet deep. Inside, what had once seemed only possible in history books appeared before their eyes. When the coffins were opened, the research team found 2 sets of skeletal remains and 1 male body remarkably well preserved. The man's face was still intact, leaving everyone amazed at the extraordinary state of preservation after more than 3 centuries. The mummy is estimated to date back to the Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1912, and the clothing on the body indicates that he was a high-ranking official. But the strange phenomenon did not end there. Just a few hours after the coffin was opened, what had seemed almost miraculous turned terrifying. The man's facial skin and his entire body began turning black and emitting a foul odor. This was a process that archaeologists had never observed so clearly before. Professor Dong Xiong, a well-known historian, commented, What's astonishing is that mere exposure to air triggered the aging process of a body that had been preserved for hundreds of years in just a single day. Foreign experts have also taken great interest in this phenomenon. Dr. Lucas Nicol, a specialist in Chinese archaeology and art at the University of London, noted that such preservation was entirely accidental. Ancient Chinese culture did not have the embalming traditions of the Egyptians, yet they still showed great respect for the deceased by placing bodies in large coffins and sturdy tombs. The old belief that the dead would live in their tomb made preserving the body structure extremely important. Even more interestingly, this body was placed in a coffin coated with paint and lined with graphite, a method commonly used at the time. This created a natural protective barrier against bacterial infiltration. However, once exposed to air immediately after the coffin was opened, natural decomposition began at a rapid pace, causing the body to turn black almost instantly. Professor Dong Sheng also suggested another possibility. The man's family may have used special materials to preserve the body. Once the coffin was opened, these protective layers were disrupted, triggering rapid decay. Although the exact cause remains under debate, scientists are working diligently to maintain the mummy's current condition, hoping to uncover the mysteries hidden beneath more than 3 centuries of rest. The story of this Qing dynasty mummy is not just a routine archaeological discovery. It is a reminder of the fragility of time and how natural processes continue to operate, even on objects preserved for centuries. It forces us to wonder, how many other secrets lie sleeping beneath the earth, waiting to be revealed? And each time a coffin is opened, history tells a story that is both horrifying and mesmerizing. $137,000. Artifact from an ancient Chinese tomb. In 1990, while digging, a farmer in Anyang County, Chengde City, Henan Province, China, discovered a strange sinkhole. Realizing it might contain cultural relics, he immediately reported it to local authorities. When experts arrived to assess the site, they discovered that the unusual hole was actually the top of an ancient tomb. Experts also found that the tomb was quite large. However, it wasn't until 1991 that archaeologists officially launched a large-scale excavation. Thanks to careful preparation, the excavation went smoothly. Many valuable cultural artifacts were unearthed, including 78 items made of gold, silver, and jade. The archaeological dig was a significant success. Not only did experts identify the tomb's occupant as Liu Hong, a famous general from the late Western Jin dynasty, but they also recovered a large collection of precious artifacts, such as a gold seal, numerous bronze items, and lacquerware. Among all the artifacts discovered in this roughly 1,700-year-old tomb, archaeologists were most intrigued by one particular object, a cylindrical jade item. The reason for the fascination was simple. Experts have yet to determine its actual function. According to archaeologists, the object resembles a jade jar, measuring approximately 4.1 inches in both height and diameter. It was crafted with extraordinary skill and precision. Usually, most jade artifacts excavated are flawless and translucent, considered the highest quality jade. However, this jar is different. It is made from high-quality jadeite, but is not translucent. Nevertheless, experts still regard it as a rare work of art. What makes it truly remarkable are the intricate patterns and motifs. The upper section is exquisitely carved with complex yet harmonious designs, including cloud patterns, dragons, and qilin. The lower section is divided into 3 groups depicting battles between immortals and dragons, tigers and dragons and bears. The base of the jar has 3 bear-shaped legs. These motifs reflect the ancient desire for immortality, longevity, and wealth. Finding jade artifacts is not uncommon in modern archaeological discoveries. However, experts note that the craftsmanship on this jade jar suggests it was created by master artisans thousands of years ago. The carving techniques even surpass those typical of the Jin dynasty, leading experts to speculate that this jade jar may have been a personal favorite of Liu Hong during his lifetime. This also sparked debate among scholars about the jar's actual purpose, despite its estimated age of roughly 1,700 years. In fact, its shape bears some resemblance to 2 wine-warming jars from the Han Dynasty discovered in Shanxi Province in 1962, which were used to hold and warm wine. Jade vessels with mythical beast motifs like this one were only produced during the Han Dynasty. Later, during the Three Kingdoms period, porcelain jars gradually replaced bronze and jade jars. However, jars in that era were primarily for drinking wine. This is where controversy arises. In ancient times, people would pour wine into specific vessels, such as cups or goblets, before drinking. The overall height of this jade jar is 4.1 inches, too small to serve as a wine jar, but too large to function as a drinking cup. Consequently, experts disagree with the idea that this artifact was used for wine. To this day, they still cannot determine its true purpose, despite confirming its immense historical and cultural value. 11 mysterious archaeological discoveries caught on camera. The tiny Pedro Mountain mummy, a 90-year mystery that keeps scientists on edge. When it comes to famous mummies around the world, surely everyone has heard of the tiny Pedro Mountain mummy, right? Many even believe that this mummy is evidence of a race of tiny people mentioned in ancient legends. Yet, others insist it was simply a mutated dwarf. And so, for generations, this story has remained a major mystery in archaeology, as no one has been able to explain the origin of this body. The story begins in the summer of 1934, in the Pedro Mountains of Wyoming. At that time, two gold prospectors, Cecil Main and Frank Carr, were roaming the mountains in search of fortune. After days of hard work without success, they stumbled upon a deep rock crevice that appeared to be a sealed ancient cave. True to their daring nature, the two decided to use explosives to open the way in. The blast echoed through the mountains, rocks flew everywhere, and before their eyes appeared a tiny cave entrance, just big enough for a person to duck and crawl through. Maine, braver of the two, squeezed inside. The cave was pitch dark, only about the size of a wardrobe, with a few signs that humans had once lived there. But there was no gold or treasure, much to their disappointment. As he was about to leave, Maine noticed something unusual resting on a ledge inside the cave. Moving closer, the flashlight revealed a tiny mummified figure, looking like an elderly man sitting in meditation, hands folded over the chest, legs neatly crossed, with a wrinkled face and an oddly frowning expression. The skin was dark brown, shriveled by the harsh, dry climate. The figure had a low forehead, large nose, big eyes, and a wide mouth, creating a look that was both lifelike and eerie. What stunned the two men most was its size. The entire body measured only about 8 inches tall and weighed less than 1 pound, so small that they doubted it was even human. Remarkably, even without fully understanding what they had found, the prospectors took it home, seeing it as a bizarre trophy of their expedition. 2 years later, the mummy was unexpectedly put on public display in Floyd Jones's pharmacy in the town of Metis. The owner cleverly placed it by the window to attract passers-by, and indeed, everyone stopped to look in curiosity. Floyd soon realized that the real gold was in the mummy itself. He charged admission, sold postcards featuring the mummy, and the name Pedro Mountain Mummy quickly spread across the region. Among the visitors was a teenage boy named Eugene Bashor, who became so fascinated by the story that he spent his entire life studying it. Thanks to this growing attention, researchers began to take the discovery seriously. X-rays of the mummy were taken, and the results shocked the scientific community. Inside the desiccated skin was a complete human skeleton, with a full set of vertebrae, rib cage, arms, and legs. But everything was incredibly tiny. This was not a model or a hoax. It was a real body. From there, numerous theories emerged. Some believed it was evidence of an ancient race of tiny people. Others argued it was a genetically mutated man, while anthropologist George Gill suggested it could have been an infant born with anencephaly, buried according to a special ritual. After years of fascination, the mummy was purchased by businessman Ivan Goodman, who displayed it at his car dealership as a unique marketing attraction. But around 1950, this precious artifact suddenly disappeared without a trace. Rumors circulated that Goodman was tricked while transporting it to New York, or that he secretly sold it to a private collector. Whatever the case, the Pedro Mountain mummy was never seen again. Even in 2005, a man named John Adolphi Syracuse in New York offered $10,000 for any information about the mummy, but 2 decades later, no clues have emerged. To this day, the mystery of the tiny Pedro Mountain mummy remains unsolved. Is it evidence of an unknown race of people, or simply a medical anomaly turned legend? While the question remains unanswered, one thing is clear. This tiny body has puzzled the world for nearly a century, and perhaps its secrets will remain buried forever beneath the sands of time. The 2,700-year-old saddle in the tomb of an ancient woman in Xinjiang, China. Can you imagine that nearly 3,000 years ago, in the harsh deserts of Xinjiang, China, a woman was buried with the world's oldest known saddle? At first it might sound ordinary, but as archaeologists excavated the Yanghai Cemetery, each layer of sand revealed a story that would astonish anyone interested in history. More than just an artifact, this saddle marks the origins of saddle making, a pivotal development in the history of horseback riding. In the tomb, the woman's body was remarkably well preserved, dressed in a leather coat, woolen pants, and short leather shoes. Beside her were familiar items from nomadic life, a ceramic cup, pieces of woven wool, but most striking was the leather saddle placed beneath her body, as if she were sitting on a horse, ready to gallop across the vast desert. The image evokes the vivid sight of ancient riders, though in this case, the rider was a woman. Upon closer study, experts discovered that the saddle structure is almost identical to modern saddles, with a cowhide covering and padding stuffed with deer and camel hair, both comfortable and sturdy, ensuring the rider's safety. Carbon dating determined the saddle's age to be between 727 and 396 BCE, placing it in the first 500 years of the first millennium BCE, a period when horseback riding began to spread in this region. Previously, people in the Altai Mountains had known how to use horse milk, but horse domestication and riding emerged later in the south, where Xinjiang is located. The discovery of multiple bridles and saddles in other Yanghai tombs indicates that horseback riding had become an integral part of daily life, and this saddle was designed not only for sitting, but also for comfort and safety on long journeys. What truly astonished archaeologists was that the saddle belonged to a woman. For centuries, horseback riding and combat had been considered men's work, but the Yanghai findings completely challenged that assumption. The woman in the tomb may have participated in hunting, traveling across the steppes, and even combat, proving that women in ancient nomadic societies played roles equal to men. Imagine over 2 millennia ago, amid golden sands and desert winds, a woman confidently mounted on a handcrafted saddle, her horse's hooves pounding as she conquered the challenges of nature and time. Doesn't that image feel heroic? It's fair to say that this saddle is more than just a tool. It is a living testament to human ingenuity and strength, opening the first chapter in the history of horseback riding. And now, as we look at this 2,700-year-old saddle, not only archaeologists, but anyone fascinated by history must wonder, was the woman in the tomb a warrior, a leader, or simply an ordinary woman who, nonetheless, carried the key to unlocking the mysteries of an entire era of horseback riding? This perhaps is the irresistible allure of archaeology. Each layer of earth, each artifact, each piece of leather tells a story, and the story of the Yanghai saddle is waiting for us to discover. The 6-million-year-old demon-faced fossil unearthed in a Florida riverbed. Have you ever imagined a massive creature with a twisted, monstrous face roaming the land we now call Florida? If not, here's something straight out of a horror movie, but real, right before the eyes of archaeologists. When a research team from the Florida Museum of Natural History dug along a dry riverbed, they didn't uncover ordinary rocks or shards of pottery. Instead, they discovered an ancient elephant graveyard, at the center of which lay a demon-faced beast known to experts as a gomphothere. These gomphotheres ruled this land around 6 million years ago, weighing between 4 and 5 tons, almost as much as a modern African elephant. But if you look closely, their faces resemble creatures straight from a horror film. Long tusks extending from the upper jaw, paired with shorter tusks from the lower jaw, curving frighteningly downward. It's hard to believe such colossal and bizarre creatures once walked the earth. What fascinated scientists most was that the gomphothere they found was intact, not broken or scattered. It leaned as if resting, with all its bones in place, almost as though it had been carefully buried by the hand of nature. This particular beast was a fully grown adult, standing about 7.9 feet tall at the shoulder, with a skull, including tusks, measuring over 9 feet long. In other words, this is the largest gomphothere ever discovered in the world. When fully grown, its body could reach 13 feet in length and weigh over 6 tons, a size that is truly awe-inspiring. You might wonder why so many gomphotheres, along with other elephant species, congregated in the Montbrook River area. Scientists have proposed an interesting hypothesis. Like modern elephants, Elderly or weak individuals may have returned to familiar water sources to rest. Over thousands of years, floods gradually washed away the remains of other species, layering them on top of each other and creating a natural graveyard of stacked bones. This scenario, though seemingly simple, raises many questions. Why did so many different species gather in one place? Was it due to behavior or simply nature's random misfortune? The scene not only astonishes scientists, but also allows us, observers from the modern era, to sense the power and mystery of nature. A 6 million-year-old beast, lying quietly in the riverbed, tells a story of a time when elephants and other giant creatures dominated Florida. It's hard to imagine that such enormous beings could be forgotten beneath layers of earth and sand, waiting to be uncovered by humans. Looking at the Gomphotheres remains, we don't just see an ancient giant elephant, we see an unsolved mystery, a story of life, death, and time meticulously written by nature itself. Every bone, every tusk is a clue, a reminder that Earth's past holds far more astonishing secrets than we might imagine. So, what do you think brought these creatures together at Montbrook? Was it truly a natural graveyard, or does it hide secrets that scientists have yet to uncover? Share your thoughts by leaving a comment below. A mass grave of 380 skeletons from the Roman Empire. In the marshlands of Enge, located in the Illerup River Valley of Denmark, archaeologists have made a discovery that sends chills down the spine of the research community. A mass grave containing nearly 380 human skeletons, dating back to the 1st century CE. The number alone is enough to make anyone shiver. But what's even more mysterious is the story behind these bones. A story drenched in blood and war, tied to the northern expansion of the Roman Empire. Led by Dr. Mette Løvskjold of Aarhus University, the research team unearthed hundreds of human skeletons buried in the cold, wet mud. Most were adult males, aged roughly 40 to 60, yet mixed among them were small skeletons of children only 13 to 14 years old. Just imagine, in the midst of a brutal battlefield, even the youngest were swept into the merciless whirl of history. It's a horrifying thought. What left archaeologists truly haunted, however, were the signs of trauma on almost every skeleton. Cuts, fractures, and even shattered bones all tell the story of a bloody battle, where humans faced one another in desperate combat. The grim picture doesn't end there. Many skeletons also show evidence of animal gnawing, likely from foxes, dogs, or wolves. It seems that after falling, their bodies were left exposed, becoming prey for the harsh Nordic wilderness. Dr. Løvskjold suggests that many of these individuals were probably not professional warriors. They may have been farmers, blacksmiths, or ordinary villagers who were forced to pick up weapons when war struck. The wounds on the bones indicate chaos, a lack of tactical formation, and signs of a hastily assembled army with no formal training. They may have fought only to protect their tribe, their village, or simply to survive. Adding to the evidence, alongside the 380 skeletons, archaeologists also discovered ancient weapons such as swords, iron knives, axes, shield fragments, and even ceramic bowls, dog bones, pig bones, and livestock remains. All of this strongly suggests that this site was more than a burial ground. It is likely the remains of an actual battle. A battle between the mighty Roman Empire and ancient Germanic tribes fought over 2,000 years ago on what is now Danish soil. Experts believe the scale of this conflict may have been much larger than historical records indicate. It not only reshaped the power map of the time, but also deeply affected the lives of local communities, where everyone, from the elderly to children, was caught up in the storm of war. Doesn't it send a chill down your spine? A mass grave in the frozen north, hundreds of skeletons lying quietly under mud for over 2 millennia, still telling the tragic story of a chapter in human history. Time may pass, but discoveries like this remind us to ask ourselves, do we truly understand the past, or have we merely scratched the surface of the iceberg called history? A 6-month-old baby mummy frozen for 500 years under Greenland ice. In an ancient burial site deeply buried beneath Greenland's thick ice, where snow and ice cover more than 80% of the land, archaeologists have made a discovery that has stunned the world. 8 Inuit bodies, preserved almost perfectly for over 500 years. Among them, the most remarkable and heartbreaking is the mummy of a 6-month-old baby, frozen alongside their family. Greenland, also known as the Land of the Greenland, is the world's largest island, located between northern Europe and North America. Though covered in ice almost year-round, this land holds countless untold stories. This shocking discovery came from an ice burial dating back to around 1475, belonging to an Inuit family, a people who have lived in the harsh Arctic environment for centuries. According to the archaeological team, the first thing that stunned them when they uncovered the ice was the astonishing preservation of the bodies. Skin, nails, hair, even tattoo marks on the forehead, cheeks, and chin were clearly visible, as if the individuals had only passed away a few years ago. Imagine that. After half a millennium trapped under thick ice, the bodies still preserved every detail, a true miracle of nature. Among the 8 mummies, there were 6 adult women, 1 older child, and the 6-month-old baby. The baby's preserved face left scientists speechless. The tiny body, almost perfectly intact, eyes closed as if peacefully sleeping in the arms of its mother. From this, a haunting hypothesis has emerged. The baby may have been buried alive. According to ancient Inuit custom, if a mother died while her child was too young to survive on its own, the baby would be buried with her. The belief was that the mother's spirit needed her child to accompany her to prevent misfortune and ensure they could reunite in the afterlife. While this may sound cruel, in the harsh Arctic conditions of the time, where survival was always precarious, it was a deeply spiritual ritual. Beyond its human and cultural significance, this discovery holds enormous scientific value. Greenland's freezing climate has acted as a giant natural freezer, perfectly preserving artifacts for hundreds of years. While scientists had previously discovered other human and animal mummies, this 6-month-old baby is now recognized as the most perfectly preserved mummy ever found in North America. Currently, 4 of the 8 mummies have been transported to the National Museum of Greenland in Nuuk for display and research. The remaining bodies, including the tiny baby, are still being studied to gain deeper insights into the lives, culture, and beliefs of ancient Inuit people. Every hair, every piece of clothing, and even the tattoos on their skin tell a story of survival, faith, and familial bonds amid the brutal cold of the Arctic. If you ever have the chance to visit Greenland, make sure to stop by the museum in Nuuk to see these frozen witnesses firsthand. Every glance and every breath in front of the display glass reminds us that beneath the thick ice lies not just preserved bodies, but also history, memory, and stories that have never been fully told. The deathly sand trap in China's most treacherous tomb. Since ancient times, the Chinese have placed great importance on tomb culture, viewing it as the final home of the deceased. They believe that after leaving the mortal world, the human soul would enter another realm, a world that still required a life of abundance and comfort, just like in the living world. Therefore, tombs were not only burial sites, but also symbols of status, power, and spiritual belief. Emperors, officials, and nobles often spent their entire lives choosing the best feng shui location for their final resting place. The mountains had to be sturdy, rivers flowing gently, and the surroundings ideally filled with trees and life-giving water. Burial items were also carefully arranged. Civil officials would have brushes, ink, and sacred books. Military officials carried swords and spears. The wealthy and noble would be buried with piles of gold, silver, and jade. Yet, it was precisely this extravagance that became a tempting prize for grave robbers, people who would stop at nothing to plunder the treasures of the dead. As a result, the ancients devised all sorts of methods to protect tombs, even creating deadly traps designed to punish anyone who dared disturb the resting dead. One of the most famous and chilling examples is a tomb discovered in 1981 in Xiangyang City, Hubei Province, nicknamed China's most treacherous tomb. The story began when local workers digging foundations for construction unearthed a stone stele carved with ancient inscriptions. Sensing something unusual beneath the ground, they alerted the authorities, who immediately dispatched 5 archaeological experts to the site. Examining the feng shui and energy of the area, they suspected that the tomb's occupant was likely a powerful nobleman or military official. What surprised them, however, was that after hundreds of years, the tomb remained almost completely intact, showing no signs of being plundered. But as they dug deeper, a scene emerged that sent shivers down their spines. Numerous skeletons were stacked around the tomb, some in a crawling position, others lying on their backs as if buried alive. Experts estimated there were around 80 sets of remains from different periods, all sharing the same fate: death while attempting to break into this tomb. Upon examining the tomb's structure, the scientists discovered a horrifying secret. The walls and ceiling were not made of ordinary stone or earth, but entirely of fine, dry sand. Any small hole dug into it would cause the sand to pour down like a waterfall, sealing the entrance and suffocating intruders to death. Worse still, beneath the sand were numerous sharp stones, ready to pierce anyone who fell in. In other words, this was a self-activating trap, no mechanical device or poison required. All it took was human greed to trigger a death sentence. Throughout history, many grave robbers had literally buried themselves alive under this sand, which is why the tomb earned the folk name, the Killer Tomb. Many may wonder, if the tomb was so dangerous, how did archaeologists excavate it safely? The answer is that by 1981, the sand in the trap had long since settled over time, so the collapsing sand phenomenon no longer occurred. This allowed the team to safely access and open the tomb. Inside, they found priceless artifacts still intact, because for thousands of years, not a single grave robber had survived to take them. The tomb was dated to roughly 1,000 years old, and at the time, it represented a rare example of defensive architecture in ancient China. Unfortunately, despite fully excavating the site, experts could not find any stelae or records revealing the tomb owner's identity. To this day, the true occupant of the deathly sand tomb remains a mystery. Yet one thing is certain: whoever lay here was undoubtedly a person of enormous power and influence, capable of commanding a trap so ingeniously terrifying, designed solely to protect their eternal rest. The mass grave of 227 children reveals one of history's most brutal rituals. In the region of Pampa La Cruz, Peru, once the center of the ancient Chimu civilization, archaeologists recently uncovered a discovery that stunned the world: the remains of 227 children aged 4 to 14 buried together in a mass grave. Even more horrifying, this was not a random death. It was part of a savage sacrificial ritual carried out more than 1,400 years ago. According to scientists, these innocent children were killed as part of the largest known ritual human sacrifice in history. They are believed to have been forced into a religious ceremony conducted by the Chimu Empire, a civilization that flourished long before the Inca. Ironically, the purpose of this horrifying ritual was to prevent natural disasters. At that time, the Chimu believed that El Niño, the extreme climate changes that caused floods, droughts, and crop failures, were the wrath of the gods. To appease these deities, religious leaders organized massive sacrifices, with the victims being innocent children. In their worldview, the sacrifice of children, symbols of innocence and purity, could bring salvation to the entire community. But to modern humans, this is seen as one of the darkest and most haunting chapters in human history. What makes this discovery even more chilling is that the 227 children grave was not the first sacrifice found at Pampa La Cruz. In 2018, archaeologists uncovered the remains of 56 children and 140 llamas, part of a similar ritual also intended to appease the gods. Yet this latest discovery dwarfs previous findings. 227 young lives were sacrificed at once, a scale unprecedented in the region. When excavated, experts noted that most of the skeletons were remarkably well preserved, with some still retaining skin, hair, and even glittering silver earrings. Such small details made the scene even more heart-wrenching. In the cold, dry soil, the children seemed to be sleeping, eyes closed, unaware that their deaths were part of a cruel game called a ritual sacrifice. For those unfamiliar, the Chimu Empire was a sophisticated society with organization, art, and rich religious practices. Yet, their blind devotion to the gods led them into a spiral of superstition, where human lives were exchanged for divine favor. Thus, the story of the 227 children is not just an archaeological discovery, it is a bitter reminder of the cost of blind faith, when humans are willing to sacrifice their own kind to secure what they believe is the world's safety. Even 1,400 years later, the haunting presence of this mass grave remains. The small bodies pressed together beneath the earth tell the story of a merciless era, when children had no right to live and were chosen as offerings. Looking at the released archaeological images, anyone cannot help but feel both horrified and heartbroken. 227 children, 227 lives cut short before they could grow were taken to save the world in the way adults believed was right. But was it truly worth it when the cost was an entire childhood buried under the cold sands? What are your thoughts on this? The 1,300-year-old golden coffin that has never been opened. China, a nation with a history spanning thousands of years of imperial dynasties, is full of mysterious stories buried beneath layers of time. Thanks to archaeology, these secrets have gradually been revealed, with each ancient fragment pieced together to reconstruct the most authentic picture of the past. Among countless discoveries that have stunned the world, the golden coffin in Shanxi province is considered one of the strangest mysteries. As for more than 10 years since its discovery, experts have never dared to open it. The story began in 2008, when a group of workers was renovating Longquan Temple in Taiyuan City, Shanxi province. While digging the foundation, they unexpectedly unearthed an ancient tomb buried deep underground. Sensing the importance of the find, the workers immediately notified the local authorities. Soon after, a team of Chinese archaeologists was dispatched to examine the site, and what they found beneath the surface left the entire team astonished. The tomb was large and intricately constructed, reflecting that its occupant was likely a person of high social status. Upon opening the burial chamber, archaeologists discovered a series of 5 nested coffins, a rare burial practice in history. These 5 coffins were made from different materials: stone, wood, bronze, silver, and gold. The innermost coffin, the 5th layer, was the rare golden coffin in question, shining brilliantly in the dark earth, a sight so striking that anyone witnessing it would be awestruck. The golden coffin was exquisitely carved with intricate patterns in the Tang Dynasty style, one of the most magnificent periods in Chinese history. Experts concluded that the tomb's occupant was likely a member of the royal family or a high-ranking wealthy official, someone powerful enough to be buried in a solid gold coffin. Curious about its contents, the archaeologists carefully transported the coffin to a laboratory for study. However, when preparing to open it, they noticed a peculiar detail: a special red silk ribbon tied in a bow around the coffin. Experts believe this ribbon may hold spiritual significance, intended to seal the deceased's soul and protect the tomb's integrity. Of course, modern archaeologists hesitated not only out of respect for tradition, but also due to concerns about preserving the artifact. Removing the ribbon could slightly shift the coffin lid, allowing outside air to enter and causing oxidation. If that occurred, everything inside, from skeletal remains to burial artifacts, could suffer irreversible damage. For this reason, the decision was made not to open the coffin, waiting instead for technology to advance enough to examine the interior without disturbing its original structure. To this day, more than 10 years later, the golden coffin remains in a special storage facility, never opened. It has become a symbol of patience in archaeology, where even a single careless touch could forever destroy a 1,000-year-old piece of history. Speculation about its contents runs wild. Some believe it may hold the body of a Tang Dynasty princess, others a high-ranking official guarding imperial treasures, and a few suggest it could even be a sealed coffin containing an ancient curse. But so far, all of this remains theory. The truth still lies silent, wrapped in that dazzling gold, both magnificent and intimidating. Perhaps it is this very mystery that makes the golden coffin in Shanxi one of the most enigmatic treasures in Chinese archaeology. Who knows? When technology finally allows the coffin to be opened, we may discover either an invaluable treasure or a secret so shocking it makes humanity shudder. 447 characters on the stone. Stelae that resolved the greatest misunderstanding about Qin Shi Huang. When it comes to ancient China, you've probably heard the name Qin Shi Huang. But for those unfamiliar, the name might sound strange, prompting the question, who exactly was Qin Shi Huang? To answer briefly, Qin Shi Huang is considered the first emperor of China. He is credited with conquering 6 rival states to unify the country, establishing an imperial system that lasted for over 2,000 years. Although he is often called the greatest emperor in history, opinions about him have always been divided. On one hand, people praise his vision and ability to govern, and they are grateful for his role in unifying the nation. On the other hand, he is often criticized for his brutality and bloodthirstiness. But was Qin Shi Huang truly the infamous tyrant that later generations have made him out to be? The answer began to emerge in 1921 when experts unearthed a Qin dynasty stone stele at an archaeological site on Longye Mountain in Shandong Province, China. This artifact, called the Longye stone stele, measures approximately 52 inches tall, 26 to 28 inches wide, and 14 inches thick, and it is inscribed with 447 characters. Notably, the stele was carved by high-ranking officials of the Qin court who were very familiar with Qin Shi Huang, making it a highly reliable historical reference. The Longye stele records Qin Shi Huang's unification of the country, the establishment of counties, and the creation of a unified legal system. It also includes a line reflecting the emperor's greatest aspiration. Now the emperor has pacified the four seas, built towns and villages, and the world is at peace. The phrase "the world is at peace" does not mean that he wished for his dynasty to rule forever. Rather, it shows that he genuinely desired peace and security for the people, ending the chaos that had plagued China during the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period, when war and bloodshed were nearly constant. Other inscriptions on the stele emphasize the importance of peace in Qin Shi Huang's reign, such as the world as one family, no need to raise arms and eradicate disasters, lay down the weapons. These passages reflect the emperor's desire for long-lasting peace, which also explains why he initiated the construction of the Great Wall to protect the country from invading Xiongnu nomads. Moreover, the Longye stele sheds new light on the infamous acts of cruelty historically attributed to Qin Shi Huang, namely the burning of books and burying of Confucian scholars. Historical and unofficial records claim that in 213 BCE, following the advice of Chancellor Li Si, the emperor ordered the destruction of books deemed harmful to the state and the execution of Confucian scholars by live burial. However, the inscriptions on the Longye stele suggest this is largely a misunderstanding. Qin Shi Huang did not order the destruction of all books. Only texts considered worthless or harmful were destroyed. Valuable works on medicine, agriculture, and animal husbandry were preserved. Similarly, the alleged live burial of Confucian scholars was in fact punishment for charlatans who deceived the emperor while he sought the elixir of immortality, not the execution of innocent scholars. Experts conclude that many of the stories portraying Qin Shi Huang as excessively cruel were exaggerated by later generations, though he was far from perfect. The emperor exploited labor to construct massive projects like his mausoleum and the Yipang Palace, which caused resentment among the populace and limited the dynasty's stability to just 15 years. So, after reading this story, what do you think about China's first emperor? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The beautiful mummified saint, a body that has remained intact for over 100 years. Around the world, there have been many discoveries of bodies that remain remarkably preserved for hundreds, even thousands of years. In most cases, science can explain the phenomenon, thanks to icy conditions or sophisticated embalming techniques. Yet, there is one case that has left researchers stunned, standing at the fragile boundary between science and the divine. This is the incorrupt body of Saint Bernadette Soubirous, known as the beautiful mummified saint, even though she was never embalmed. Bernadette was born in 1844, the eldest daughter of a poor tailor's family in the town of Lourdes, southern France. From a young age, she was frail, frequently struggling with asthma and tuberculosis of the bones. Despite her physical weakness, she became one of the most famous figures in Christian history. In 1858, at just 14 years old, Bernadette claimed that she had seen the Virgin Mary appear in a grotto near the Gave River while gathering firewood. Initially, no one believed her, but within 5 months, Bernadette asserted that she had witnessed the Virgin Mary 18 times. Word spread rapidly, and thousands of people flocked to the grotto, prompting local authorities to ban gatherings and even threatened to imprison the young girl. Yet Bernadette stood firm, insisting that what she saw was real. Then a miracle occurred. A clear spring began to flow from the grotto, its waters said to heal the sick. News of the spring quickly spread across France, reaching Empress Eugénie, who later authorized the construction of the Sanctuary of Our Lady of Lourdes at the sacred site, a place that remains the largest Catholic pilgrimage site in the world. Bernadette later entered a convent, living a simple, devout life. She passed away in 1879 at age 35, after years of battling illness. Most people assumed her story had ended there, But nearly 35 years later, when the church prepared to canonize Bernadette, her tomb was opened, and those present were left speechless. Her body remained completely intact, as if she had just fallen asleep. Her face retained a healthy glow, her hands were soft, and her skin was elastic. There was no sign of decay, no foul odor, just slightly damp clothing and a few rusted metal objects. Surgeon Dr. Tourdon, who witnessed the event, recalled, "The saint's face was gentle, her hands folded on her chest, skin smooth, lips slightly parted, revealing pure white teeth, as if she were merely sleeping, not dead." Her tomb was opened 2 more times, in 1919 and 1925, and the same miracle occurred. Her body remained uncorrupted with no deformation. Experts in medicine, biology, and religion from around the world came to study her, yet no one could explain it. Bernadette's body was never embalmed, nor placed in any special environment. Other bodies buried at the same time had long since decayed, yet Bernadette remained gracefully beautiful, as if sleeping peacefully in faith. Today, her body is displayed in a glass coffin at Saint Gildard Chapel in Lourdes. A thin layer of wax protects her face and hands, but her holy, serene beauty continues to move millions of pilgrims. It is believed that the miracle of the Virgin Mary preserved Bernadette in this state, a symbol of faith and purity. Science, despite all attempts, still cannot explain why a normally buried body could remain incorrupt for more than a century. Perhaps in a world governed by rules, some things transcend human reason, just like the pure smile of Saint Bernadette, the girl of Our Lady of Lourdes, whose immortal beauty of faith and holiness continues to awe humanity. The meditating monk's mummy, remaining intact after hundreds of years. In the Buddhist world, there are stories that seem almost legendary, where the human body appears to defy the laws of time. Centuries pass, yet the body remains remarkably preserved, sitting calmly in a meditative posture as if absorbed in deep meditation beyond the impermanence of life. These are called monk mummies, but for devout Buddhists, they are believed to be incorrupt bodies of enlightened masters, a testament to profound spiritual awakening where body and mind are in perfect harmony. One of the most astonishing cases is that of monk Wu Yunqing in China. He was a virtuous monk who dedicated his entire life to meditation and teaching Dharma. After his passing, his disciples performed a special burial ritual, placing his body in a ceramic coffin, carefully sealed and interred according to Buddhist rites. 17 years later, in December 2014, when archaeologists conducted an excavation, they could hardly believe their eyes. The monk's body was nearly fully intact, with only slight shrinkage due to dehydration. There were no signs of decomposition, no unusual odor, and most remarkable of all, his face retained a serene, peaceful expression as if he were in deep meditation. What perplexed scientists was that there was no trace of embalming or chemical preservation. Yet the body remained almost perfectly preserved after 17 years, a phenomenon that defies conventional explanation. Some suggest that the power of meditation and a profound spiritual state might have contributed to this unique preservation. But this mysterious phenomenon is not limited to China. In Songanokharkan province, Mongolia, a monk's mummy was discovered in a lotus meditation posture, believed to be Dashi Dorjo Itagilov, a renowned 19th century master. Born in 1852, nearly 200 years later, his body remained intact, sitting in meditation with hands gently resting on his knees and a calm expression as if listening to the wind. Experts were astonished. The body showed no signs of decay, no rotting, and was only covered by a thin layer of cowhide. Locals believe he is not dead but in deep meditation, and that he will awaken when the world reaches a certain state. Although science has yet to explain this, the existence of this body continues to amaze both the Buddhist community and archaeologists alike. Another story is that of monk Fu Hao, who spent his life at Puzhou Temple in Fujian Province, China. Before passing at age 91, he expressed a wish to be preserved in a meditative posture as a way to continue his spiritual practice after death. Monks honored his wish, wrapping his body in charcoal, clay, and sandalwood and placing it in a stupa. When the protective layer was later opened, people were stunned. Fu Hao still sat in the lotus posture, his face gentle, eyes half closed, as if in meditation. Today, his body is coated with a layer of gold paint and has become a sacred symbol in the temple, attracting pilgrims from all over. Monks say that seeing his incorrupt body serves as a constant reminder of enlightenment, purity, and unwavering dedication to spiritual practice. From China to Mongolia, these meditating monk mummies continue to baffle scientists. 12 archaeological discoveries, scarier than horror movies that top scientists still can't explain. The 1,300-year-old tomb of the Lord of Huarmey in Peru. In a barren region near the town of Huarmey, north of Lima, Peru, where it seems that only the remnants of time remain, an archaeological discovery has stunned the scientific community. Hidden within an ancient cemetery buried beneath layers of soil and rock, archaeologists have unearthed a 1,300-year-old tomb belonging to the Wari civilization, an empire that once ruled the Andes from 500 to 1000 AD. But this is no ordinary tomb. It is like a doorway to the past, revealing the story of a powerful figure known as the Lord of Huarmey, along with 6 others buried beside him. The moment the tomb's entrance was opened, the scene inside left witnesses breathless. Surrounding the 7 skeletons were countless precious artifacts, from gold and silver jewelry to copper tools, woven baskets, textiles, and raw materials used in crafting. Every item reflects an incredible level of care and sophistication, showcasing a highly developed culture where craftsmanship was a source of national pride. Experts believe that those interred in this tomb were not only members of the elite, but also master artisans, possessing the most advanced techniques and secrets of their time. According to the archaeological team from the University of Warsaw, 6 of the 7 skeletons belong to 4 adults, possibly 2 men and 2 women, along with 3 adolescents. What surprised them was that some of the bodies appear to have been initially buried elsewhere and later relocated to this tomb, a rare ritual that may have held deep religious or familial significance that remains unexplained today. For the Wari, this tomb may have held a sacred meaning unlike any other, a spiritual convergence where the living entrusted their beliefs and memories of the community. Dr. Miłosz Giersz, the excavation team leader, added that this is the first time a tomb dedicated to high-ranking men who were also master craftsmen has been discovered. He referred to it as a gallery of elite artisans, a completely new concept, showing that the Wari society honored skilled labor as much as royal power. Those who created beauty and preserved craftsmanship were buried with the same glory as kings and rulers. The significance of this tomb extends further, as it is located near another burial site discovered in 2012 by Dr. Giersz and his wife, Associate Professor Patrycja Pszczątka-Giersz, where they uncovered the remains of 3 powerful women known as the Wari Queens. Alongside them were 58 others, mostly noble women, and some who may have been sacrificial attendants accompanying the queens into the afterlife. From these 2 discoveries arises a profound question. How advanced was the Wari civilization to simultaneously honor kings, queens, and craftsmen? Could it be that we have only glimpsed the surface of a brilliant society where power, artistry, and belief were intricately intertwined in every fragment of ancient soil? Do you have your own answer? I don't yet, but I believe that every shovel of earth reveals a piece of history, a reminder that countless secrets still lie buried beneath the Peruvian ground, waiting to be awakened by human hands and to tell the extraordinary story of a lost civilization. And the story of the Lord of Huarmey is no exception. The 12,000-year-old mummified pair of baby lions preserved as if alive. Have you ever imagined that, in the freezing lands of Siberia, where the ground remains frozen year-round, a secret could be preserved for 12,000 years? It sounds unbelievable, yet this story is entirely true. A local man named Yakov Androsov, while walking along the Uyandina River in Yakutia, Russia, accidentally discovered an unusually clear patch of ice emerging from the ground. But what stunned him wasn't the ice itself. It was the 2 tiny creatures inside, with pale golden fur, lying as if peacefully asleep. These creatures were later identified as 2 baby cave lions, a species that once roamed during the Ice Age but went extinct tens of thousands of years ago. They were named Uyan and Dina, after the river where they were found. What amazed scientists even more was that the bodies of these 2 lions were almost perfectly preserved. Skin, fur, and even internal organs were intact, maintained with an incredible level of detail. Many observers remarked that they looked no different from 2 kittens who had just fallen asleep in the snow. Russian scientists immediately began studying the find, calling it one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries of the century. Preliminary analysis revealed that Uyan and Dina's soft tissue and DNA were so well preserved that genetic material could be extracted. Some experts even suggested that, with today's technology, cloning a cave lion, while not immediately possible, is no longer purely science fiction. But what caused these tiny creatures to remain frozen under ice for so many millennia? One hypothesis is that their mother may have hidden them in a natural pit to protect them from predators, only for a sudden landslide to bury the den entirely. Thanks to Siberia's extremely low and stable temperatures, the bodies did not decompose and were preserved almost perfectly, as if time had stopped at that fateful moment. According to Julie Meechan, a fossil specialist at Des Moines University, USA, finding 2 cave lion specimens with skin, fur, and internal organs intact after thousands of years is so rare that it is almost miraculous. She explained that normally, archaeologists can only find bones, or at best, fragments of soft tissue. Yet this time, these Ice Age babies were discovered in a condition that looked as if they had died yesterday. For context, cave lions were first identified in 1810 and once lived across Europe and Asia between 10,000 and 300,000 years ago. However, modern science still knows very little about them, from their population size and habitat to their evolutionary relationship with today's African lions. Now, thanks to Uyan and Dina, humanity has a unique opportunity to explore life during the Ice Age and understand how massive animals once survived the extreme cold of the ancient Earth. Ultimately, could these mummified cubs open a door to the past, perhaps even help resurrect a species that has been extinct for millennia? If humans were ever able to bring cave lions back to life, it would be a breathtaking scientific achievement, but it would also raise a critical question: should we do it? The answer remains unknown, but one thing is certain. Beneath Siberia's eternal ice lie countless secrets still waiting to be discovered. And who knows, the next find might astonish the world once again. If that happens, wouldn't it be fascinating? Medieval teenage girl's skeleton burned and buried like a resurrected witch. Beneath the ancient soil of Italy, a land that once witnessed countless chilling tales from the Middle Ages, archaeologists made a shocking discovery: a strange grave containing the skeleton of a teenage girl, only 15 to 17 years old. What makes this find particularly haunting is that the girl's body showed signs of having been burned alive, then thrown into a burial pit and covered with heavy stone slabs, as if someone had wanted to imprison her soul beneath the earth forever. The grave was found at the San Calicero complex in Albenga, northern Italy, a site already known for its mysteries surrounding the outcasts of the Middle Ages. According to a research team led by archaeologist Stefano Roacchio, this method of burial was far from random. It reflects the deep-seated fear of people at the time. They believed the girl was a witch, a threat even in death. For this reason, her body was burned, then buried face down and weighed down with stones to prevent her from rising from the dead. Interestingly, just a few years ago, in the same area, Professor Felipe Pergola's team discovered the body of a 13-year-old girl, also buried face down in a similar anti-witch ritual. This raises the question: were these 2 young girls connected, or were they simply victims of medieval fanaticism, where anything unusual was immediately labeled as demonic? To answer this, experts began analyzing the skeleton. Initial examinations revealed that the girl was burned while her body was still soft, a horrifying detail that led researchers to speculate: could she have been set on fire while still alive? The burn marks, charred bone fragments, and her curled posture suggest an excruciating death. When her body was thrown into the pit, her head bent sharply forward, chin almost touching her chest, a chilling image for anyone who sees it. Further analysis of her skull and eye sockets revealed signs of parotid hyperostosis, a condition caused by severe anemia and malnutrition. Weak tooth enamel and porous bones indicate she endured hunger and illness throughout her childhood. Perhaps it was her pale, frail appearance and the bruises on her body that convinced villagers she was possessed by evil. Driven by blind fear, they burned her, performing a purification ritual meant to ward off malevolent forces. Now, centuries later, after the layers of earth and stone have been removed, the girl's skeleton tells a dark chapter of human history, a time when fear and superstition overpowered reason. Scientists continue to analyze her DNA, radiocarbon dating, and burn marks on the bones to determine whether she was a victim of disease, superstition, or some other sinister cause. Even though the final answers remain unknown, one thing is certain. The fire that consumed this teenage girl so long ago still burns metaphorically in the hearts of those trying to understand why humans once feared one another to such an extent that they buried their peers under heavy stones. 900-year-old skeleton beneath an ancient tree tells a chilling medieval story. During a fierce winter storm in Sligo, Ireland, locals witnessed an unexpected scene. A massive birch tree, over 200 years old, was toppled by the wind, its roots ripping up a large section of earth. But what left everyone stunned was not the fallen tree itself, it was what lay beneath it, a human skeleton that had rested undisturbed for nearly 900 years. As the tree fell, its roots pulled up the upper half of the skeleton, including the spine and skull, exposing them above the ground. Meanwhile, the leg bones remained buried deep in the soil, as if the man were being torn in two between worlds, one half belonging to the past, the other dragged into the present. Immediately, the Sligo Leitrim Archaeological team was called to the scene. What they discovered next amazed the scientific community. Research revealed that the skeleton belonged to a young man, roughly 17 to 20 years old, who lived during the Middle Ages, around 1200 to 1230 AD. He stood 5 feet 10 inches tall, nearly 3 inches taller than the average man of his time, a rare stature for that era. Despite his robust build, his body bore the marks of intense labor. Bone analysis indicated he suffered from spinal osteoarthritis, a condition common among those who performed hard physical work from a young age, possibly a farmer, laborer, or servant in the Lord's estate. However, the young man's death remains a mysterious puzzle. Examination of the skeleton revealed multiple knife wounds. First, 2 deep cuts on the ribs, followed by a slash on the hand, possibly indicating defense or resistance. Strangely, there was no evidence he died in battle. Was he a victim of a brawl, a personal dispute, or a secret execution? The question remains unanswered. One thing is certain, the man was buried according to Christian rites. His body was laid out neatly in an east-west orientation, hands folded over the pelvis, a traditional posture for Christians of that time. Yet, researchers confirmed the area was not a cemetery, meaning he was buried alone, in an open field, beneath a spot where a tree later grew to cover his grave for centuries. It is remarkable. Perhaps the isolation of his death prompted nature to protect him. The birch tree grew, its roots cradling the skeleton, preserving him for 9 centuries, until a fateful storm revealed the long-buried secret. Photos from the site are chilling. The tree roots remain tightly wrapped around the spine and skull, as if holding a restless soul. A scene both tragic and miraculous, a testament to the way nature and history can intertwine in the most unexpected ways. I would boldly say that the story of the 900-year-old skeleton beneath the ancient tree is not just an archaeological discovery, but also a reminder of human fragility and the enduring power of time. Between wind and roots, soil and bones, the past continues to whisper its story, waiting for someone curious enough to listen. Do you feel the same way? If so, don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below this video. The White Ghost in a 1,000-year-old tomb in China. One morning at the end of 2007 in Jingzhou, Hubei Province, China, once the ancient capital of the Zhou dynasty, a group of workers were going about their usual tasks when suddenly a piercing shout came from the ground. "There's a huge hole! I think there's something underneath." The entire construction site fell silent. No one dared take another step. Little did they know, the sinkhole had opened a door to a world thousands of years old. Soon after, the local Cultural Relics Bureau was notified urgently. Within hours, archaeologists arrived at the scene. At first, everyone assumed it was just an ordinary Zhou-era tomb, since Jingzhou is famous for ancient relics. But upon closer inspection, they realized the tomb actually dated to the Han Dynasty, making it over 2,000 years old. As they dug down about 6.5 feet, the full structure of the tomb gradually appeared under the dim yellow lights. The tomb was funnel-shaped, narrowing from top to bottom, covering roughly 258 square feet, a significant size, indicating the occupant likely held a high status. At the center, archaeologists discovered a massive coffin, over 13 feet long and more than 10 feet wide, surrounded by numerous valuable burial items, all evidence of a life lived in luxury. But what caught the researchers' attention most was the coffin lid. It had a strange wooden frame, meticulously joined with round mortise and tenon joints, forming a circular pattern, a design never seen in other tombs of the era. Naturally, everyone was eager to open it and see what lay inside. Then, the unexplainable happened. As they prepared to lift the lid, a faint white-gray figure appeared on its surface, resembling a woman standing with her head bowed. The sight sent the entire team reeling in fear. Some whispered that it was the spirit of the tomb's owner, while others were convinced it was a sign of a supernatural phenomenon. In the tense atmosphere, thick with the smell of damp earth and pounding hearts, no one dared breathe heavily. Yet, after regaining their composure, the team decided to open the coffin to uncover the truth behind the white ghost. When the lid was finally lifted, instead of a mummy or valuable artifacts, the coffin contained only pale yellow liquid, with fragments of decayed silk floating on the surface. Beneath the silk lay a wooden board engraved with the deceased's name and a skeleton in disarray. Based on the ancient inscriptions, archaeologists determined the tomb belonged to a woman surnamed Hui, who died at 50 years old during the Han Dynasty. Everything seemed explained, except for the mysterious white figure. Could it really have been a ghost, as rumors suggested? After days of analysis, the truth finally emerged. The white ghost was not a spirit, but a natural phenomenon. As the silk in the coffin decayed, mold spread across the lid, forming a shape that coincidentally resembled a standing figure. In the dim light of the tomb, the mold appeared almost like a ghost materializing. Even with a scientific explanation, imagine the moment, deep underground, in a 1,000-year-old tomb, as flashlight beams illuminated the lid and the figure slowly appeared. Who wouldn't shiver? Perhaps the past never truly sleeps. It still whispers through fragments of silk, grains of wood, and sometimes even through shadows we cannot explain. What about you? Do you believe it was just mold? Or do you think Hui's spirit had something left to communicate after thousands of years of rest? A 1,000-year-old family tomb in Xi'an, China, even ancient grave robbers were foiled by its ingenious traps. In November 2006, in Xi'an, Shanxi Province, China, what seemed like an ordinary incident quickly unfolded into a story that left archaeologists holding their breath. At that time, the police seized 129 ancient artifacts, including inscribed steles that a smuggling group had attempted to remove from a Song dynasty tomb. According to their statements, these items were taken from a nearby ancient tomb by someone distantly related to the tomb's owner and then sold on the black market. But when the Shanxi Provincial Cultural Relics Bureau arrived at the site, they were shocked. This was no ordinary tomb. It was part of a family cemetery covering nearly 22 acres, containing the graves of 5 generations of the Liu family from the Song dynasty. The cemetery was laid out according to a scientific central axis plan. The tombs of the eldest son and eldest grandson were aligned along the main axis, while other tombs were arranged along secondary axes according to family hierarchy. What made this tomb particularly impressive and foiled even ancient grave robbers was its sophisticated anti-theft system, known as tomb stacked on tomb. Each tomb was built very deep, the shallowest at 25 feet and the deepest at 51 feet, with multiple chambers stacked on top of each other. Only the bottom chamber contained the coffin and precious burial items. The upper chambers were empty. Any intruder digging down would have to navigate from one chamber to another, never knowing which was the real burial chamber, risking being trapped or suffocated. This danger was clearly demonstrated during the excavation itself. Archaeologists almost became trapped alive because of the tomb's clever design, showing just how meticulously the ancient builders had planned everything. As the site was carefully excavated, experts began to uncover the history of this prestigious family, the Liu family of Dalin, which existed from 1044 to 1092. They were famous as pioneers of Chinese archaeology. Liu Dalin was the first scholar to systematically study bronze artifacts and ancient inscriptions, cataloging, sketching, and annotating them in a highly scientific manner, laying the foundation for archaeology and paleontology in China. Surprisingly, no bronze artifacts belonging to Liu Dalin were found in the tomb, possibly looted long ago. Nevertheless, archaeologists discovered over 600 exquisite artifacts, including porcelain, ceramics, gold, silver, and lacquerware, mostly items used in daily life, reflecting the family's refined aesthetic taste. In the tomb of Tian Dung, Liu Dalin's granddaughter, archaeologists found a silver box containing red powder, which tests confirmed was women's makeup. Remarkably, after 1,000 years, the powder remained intact, as if time had not touched it. This tomb not only demonstrates advanced tomb-building techniques, but also reveals the daily life, culture, and aesthetic sensibilities of a noble Song dynasty family. Tea sets, household utensils, and delicate artifacts indicate that tea was a popular drink, and life was highly civilized and refined. Every detail of the artifacts tells a story of the family's intelligence, meticulousness, and power, to the point that even ancient grave robbers failed, and modern archaeologists had to proceed with extreme caution. Looking at this family cemetery, it is easy to see that the ancients had considered every method to protect the family's wealth and reputation. This site is a vivid testament to the combination of science, art, and defensive strategy in Song dynasty China, a priceless lesson for anyone interested in archaeology and history. The Wolfman's Skull Box. Imagine this. On a normal morning in the fields, instead of digging up rocks or roots, you uncover an ancient wooden box, chained tightly as if guarding a secret no one should ever know. What would you do? Hard to imagine, right? But this is exactly what happened to Traichi Draganov, an ordinary Bulgarian farmer living in Novo Selo, Macedonia. While preparing the soil for a new planting season, Draganov unexpectedly unearthed an old wooden box buried deep in the ground. The strange thing was that this box bore no resemblance to any agricultural tool he had ever seen. It was wrapped in rusted chains and securely locked, as if someone had wanted to ensure that nobody could open it. Driven by curiosity, he cut the chains and opened the box. What he saw inside left him speechless. Inside was a skull shaped like a wolf's, but what stunned everyone even more was the unusually enlarged cranial dome, a feature never seen in animals, only in primates and humans. The skull combined the ferocity of a wild beast with an eerie, inexplicable oddity, defying normal logic. News of the shocking discovery quickly reached historian Philip Ganev, who happened to be in Novo Selo collecting material for a book on the Balkan Wars. After witnessing the strange skull firsthand, Ganev photographed it and reported it to the authorities. However, the official conclusion from the Macedonian government disappointed many. They claimed it was merely the skull of a wolf suffering from a chronic bone disease, an extremely rare condition that could deform the skull. But this is where the story takes a twist. The disease they referenced is typically found in humans and rarely occurs in wild animals. So how could a wolf exhibit a human-like cranial deformation? And why was this skull carefully stored in a locked, chained box, as if trapping a dangerous entity? To explore this, we turn to ancient Balkan folklore, where the werewolf was not just a legend, but a deep-rooted fear passed down through generations. Some believe that werewolves were the wandering spirits of the severely guilty, eternally cursed. One legend even claimed that a werewolf could only be killed on a Saturday, when it returned to its resting place, and the only way to prevent its resurrection was to decapitate it and burn the body. If this legend holds any truth, the fact that the box contained only a head could suggest that someone once performed a ritual to seal the creature and prevent its return. But by opening the box, could Traichi Draganov have broken that seal? Interestingly, while Traich was proud of his strange find and willing to share it with anyone curious, the villagers of Novo Selo did not share his enthusiasm. They believed he had awakened something that should not be disturbed, and feared the werewolf's return. Traich himself reflected, with unease, "They think my actions will bring the werewolf back. But it's done. What is meant to happen will happen." So what about you? Do you think this is simply a deformed wolf skull? Or could it be the remains of a creature that once spread terror across the ancient Balkans? Personally, I believe the answer may still lie quietly in the field where the box was discovered. Or worse, it may have awakened and be waiting for something in the future. The tattooed mummy and the golden treasure beneath a pyramid in Peru. When most people think of mummies, Egypt immediately comes to mind. Legendary pharaohs, Ka spirits, and opulent gold-adorned tombs. The ancient Egyptians believed the body was the dwelling place of the soul, and they went to great lengths to preserve it, from removing internal organs to dehydrating the corpse with natron, ensuring it could last for thousands of years. In China, mummies were cared for just as meticulously. Wooden caskets made from cypress and medicinal herbs were used to slow decomposition and preserve the body. But today, Let's set Egypt aside and travel deep into South America, to Peru, a land where ancient pyramids hold mysteries as intriguing as those of the pharaohs. Deep inside the El Brujo pyramid, archaeologists discovered a mummy that had lain undisturbed for nearly 1,600 years, waiting for its secrets to be revealed. What first caught the researchers' attention were unusual marks in the soil, rectangular patterns that hinted at a hidden secret beneath. Careful excavation revealed a magnificent tomb, not merely a burial site, but a treasure trove of gold, jade, bracelets, rings, and other luxury items reserved only for high-ranking individuals in Moche society. The centerpiece of the tomb, however, stunned everyone. The mummy was not a king or a famous warrior, but a young woman. Her body was adorned with elaborate tattoos depicting snakes, spiders, crabs, and other strange crawling creatures across her arms, legs, and feet. The number and complexity of these tattoos surpassed any other artifact left by the Moche. They were not only works of art, but seemed to encode religious beliefs, prayers for abundant harvests, and symbols of authority. The Moche were a society where men typically held power. So why was this woman treated with such respect? Was she a queen, a high priestess, or even a celebrated female warrior? Remarkably, she was buried with 23 spears, a staggering number compared to the men of similar status who were usually buried with only 1 or 2. Even as researchers pondered her high status, another mystery emerged. Why did she die so young? Her skeletal remains showed no signs of disease or trauma, though some hypotheses suggest she may have died in childbirth. While that remains unconfirmed, one thing is certain. This mummy provides archaeologists with invaluable insights into the life, worldview, and beliefs of the Moche civilization. Observing her, one cannot help but wonder, in a male-dominated society, why was a woman so highly honored? Her tattoos, the treasures buried with her, and the rituals surrounding her tomb seem to tell a story we have yet to fully decode. Each mark, each symbol, forms a piece of the Moche historical puzzle, inviting us to explore and reflect. Peru, with its pyramids and treasure-filled tombs, proves that the ancient world still holds countless undiscovered mysteries. If Egypt is famous for its pharaohs' mummies, the Moche civilization is no less magnificent, immortalizing female heroes like this young woman, whose life, deeds, and legacy have left an indelible mark on history. The 20,000-year-old woman's tomb in a hunter's hut. If you've ever believed that cremation is a practice that appeared only about 10,000 years ago, the latest archaeological discovery in Jordan might make you reconsider the entire history of humanity. Why do I say that? Recently, archaeologists unearthed a strange and mysterious ancient tomb that challenges previous scientific understanding, opening a window into a sacred ritual from nearly 20,000 years ago. The site, Karna 4, is a remote desert location in Jordan where excavations began in 2015. Initially, archaeologists only found fragments of antelope bones, evidence of a long-standing hunting ground. But in 2024, a team led by Dr. Lisa Maher, University of California, Berkeley, and Dr. Danielle McDonald, University of Tulsa, uncovered something far beyond expectations: a Paleolithic tomb showing early signs of cremation. What shocked the archaeological world even more was the tomb's age, 19,400 years old, far exceeding previously recorded evidence of cremation. This ancient tomb was unlike any other ever discovered. Inside, scientists found the body of a woman, placed on her side with her knees drawn up, resting inside a small wooden hunter's hut. What made it extraordinary was that both the hut and the body had been burned, as if intentionally, in a ritualistic act. Analysis by the research team suggests that the hut was built like a real home, a living space for the living. Yet, in a sacred ceremony, the deceased was cremated within that very living space, allowing her to continue existing among the living. This symbolic form of burial transformed the tomb into an eternal home. The evidence surrounding the area further highlights the woman's special status. At least 3 other huts with similar structures were discovered nearby, but all were empty. No remains, no signs of cremation. This led researchers to believe that cremation in the hunter's hut was reserved only for a select few with high status, and this woman was among them. She may have been an elder, a spiritual leader, or a central figure in the ancient hunter-gatherer community. The way she was laid to rest indicates that she was not an ordinary person, but a living symbol of her community. This extraordinary tomb not only challenges the foundations of modern archaeology, but also offers insight into how ancient people viewed life and death as interconnected realms, inseparable and interwoven with every breath. Could it be that tens of thousands of years ago, humans already understood that death was not an end, but a return? Given this discovery, that possibility no longer seems far-fetched. The remains of a 29-week fetus. On a gloomy morning in April 2009, when the ground shook violently from a 6.3 magnitude earthquake in L'Aquila, Italy, all eyes were drawn to collapsed buildings, desperate cries for help, and the unbearable grief of over 300 lives lost in an instant. Yet amid the devastation, no one expected that beneath the floor of a centuries-old church, collapsed by the tremor, lay a chilling secret hidden for more than 180 years, the remains of a fetus only 29 weeks old. During excavation, the archaeological team not only discovered the mummified remains of adults, but also uncovered an unusually small skeletal set. It was the skeleton of an unborn child, never having taken its first breath, lying silently in the dark of the church basement. Experts from Chieti University determined that the fetus dates back to around 1840, a time when modern medicine was still a distant dream and societal attitudes toward reproduction were heavily restrictive and oppressive. Using advanced X-ray technology, researchers noted something unusual. The fetal skeleton was disarticulated. The skull was fractured in multiple places, the spine was broken, and the arms were completely detached from the body. This was not the result of natural decomposition, but clear evidence of a brutal and controversial procedure known as embryotomy. This procedure, common from the Middle Ages and still sporadically practiced into the 19th century, was a primitive form of abortion. Crude tools such as wooden sticks or metal rods were inserted into the mother's body to remove the fetus, regardless of whether the child was alive or deceased. Embryotomy was sometimes performed for medical reasons as a last resort, but it could also stem from social prejudice or the harsh circumstances that women of that era were forced to endure. We will likely never know exactly what happened to the mother of this fetus. Was she a victim of society or of strict religious regulations? That question may remain forever unanswered. What makes this discovery particularly poignant is not only its archaeological value, but also the way the local Italian community historically treated a life that never had the chance to be born. Experts carefully collected and repositioned each skeletal fragment into its original placement, a final act of respect for this tiny child. In a world where death is often overlooked, this careful preservation stands as a testament to human compassion, delayed perhaps, but enduring in the hearts of people. An earthquake tore open the earth, but inadvertently revealed secrets long forgotten by time. The remains of this 29-week-old fetus now serve as a reminder of a painful past, of life and death choices, and of the empathy that humans are capable of extending, even at the boundary between life and death. The 1,000-year-old tomb of a Chinese couple. During the construction of the Ningxiang-Shaoshan Highway in Hunan Province, China, workers had no idea that part of a millennium-old past lay just beneath their feet. As soon as the excavator dug into the earth, layers of soil and rock gradually revealed an unusual structure. Two brick coffins placed side by side. Inside, the remains of a couple were discovered, buried during the Northern Song Dynasty, over 1,000 years ago. The archaeological team from the Hunan Provincial Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology quickly arrived on site, and what they uncovered shocked the professional community. Between the two coffins, the resting places of the husband and wife, was a structure resembling a small window. At first glance, it might have seemed like a simple ventilation opening or a technical feature, but to the trained eyes of the experts, this was far from an ordinary architectural detail. Researchers suggest this structure can be poetically called a fairy bridge. It symbolizes the connection between two souls, allowing the couple, even in death, to see each other, converse, and continue their unfinished love story beyond the mortal world. The construction of a double tomb with a spiritual bridge is extremely rare in Chinese archaeology. It reflects not only the deep bond between the couple, but also ancient cultural beliefs about death, that death is not the end, but rather a passage to another form of existence, where love continues to flourish. Inside the tomb, The team also found numerous ceramic burial objects, most of which remained intact and were carefully arranged. Based on the style and quality of these artifacts, experts believe the couple likely came from a well-to-do family with social status during the Northern Song dynasty. After excavation, each artifact was cleaned, documented, and taken to a museum, where their love story will continue to be shared with future generations. In a world full of change and turmoil, love remains sacred and enduring. The 1,000-year-old tomb in Hunan is not just an archaeological discovery, it is a gentle message from the past, showing that some loves require no words, no glances, yet can transcend 1,000 years to remain together forever. The 700-year-old lovers' skeletons, still hand-in-hand beneath a lost church in England. When people think of mysterious archaeological stories, they often imagine the pyramids of Egypt or mummies in Peru. But did you know that in the peaceful countryside of Leicestershire, England, there lies a secret that makes many shiver? During a project to excavate a long-lost church, St. Morel's Church, archaeologists uncovered an unforgettable scene. Two skeletons still hand-in-hand, even after more than 700 years. At first glance, you might think, oh, what's so unusual about lovers dying together? But the truth sparks curiosity. These two were not buried in the main church of the area, but rather in a church that had vanished over time, only recently discovered by historians and archaeologists. Why they were buried here or placed here remains a mystery. Vicky Score, one of the researchers, explained that this unusual finding raises a big question. Why weren't they buried in Hallaton, which had a better church, instead of St. Morel's? One hypothesis suggests that this lost church may have been reserved for special individuals, perhaps criminals, exiles, people with infectious diseases, or simply a stop along medieval pilgrimage routes. Of course, the excavation did not happen overnight. Over the course of 4 years, archaeologists from the University of Leicester, along with local volunteers, carefully uncovered walls, stone foundations, plaster, tiles, and other structural elements stretching from the windows to the surrounding graveyard. In addition, they found several coins, including silver coins dating from the 12th to the 16th centuries, helping confirm when the church was active. It may sound dry, but can you imagine the feeling of uncovering these remnants, where each stone and tile tells a story from 700 years ago? The discoveries became even more remarkable when archaeologists used radiocarbon dating to determine the age of the skeletons. Results showed that all 11 skeletons in the area date to the 14th century and were buried in an east-west orientation, following Christian customs of the time. But the most striking find remains the hand-in-hand couple, a timeless symbol of love or connection that makes one pause and wonder about their lives. Were they lovers or companions facing the harsh realities of medieval life together? Looking at the remains, you see more than bones. You see a window into the social life, beliefs, and culture of the era. This lost church was once a center of religious activity, a place for burial and remembrance of a community that has long disappeared. Even with just stone foundations and a few coins left behind, these traces open a window into human experience, love, faith, and mysteries yet unsolved. Ultimately, the intertwined hands of these skeletons send a silent message that even as the world changes and centuries pass, fundamental human emotions like love and care endure, transcending the barriers of time. For anyone passionate about discovery, this story proves that sometimes the greatest mysteries are not in distant pyramids or tombs, but right here in the familiar landscapes around us. 12 bizarre archaeological discoveries around the world. Guanajuato Mummy Museum, where restless souls linger in the heart of Mexico. If there's one place in the world that can make your hair stand on end while filling you with curiosity so strong that you just have to see it for yourself, it's undoubtedly the Guanajuato Mummy Museum in Mexico. This isn't your typical museum filled with statues or paintings. It's a place that displays real human bodies, naturally preserved for hundreds of years. Just stepping through its icy glass doors, you feel as if you've entered the realm of the dead, a place where time has stopped and people remain, only no longer breathing. Behind the fragile glass cases are hundreds of mummies, dried and yellowed like old parchment. Some still have hair, beards, and even fingernails intact, proof of nature's strange preservation. What's particularly eerie is that most of them share a common expression. mouths open, faces twisted, as if frozen in a scream of ultimate terror. But don't assume they died in agony. According to Jesus Saltillo, a longtime guide at the museum, these expressions result from jaw muscle contraction after death, not a horrific demise. The origin of these mysterious mummies comes from the Panteón de Santa Paula, a cemetery not far from the museum. Here, bodies were not buried in the ground in the usual way, but placed in sealed tombs with no oxygen, which dramatically slowed decomposition. The dryness inadvertently turned the corpses into naturally preserved mummies that have lasted for decades. What chills people even more is how the museum acquires its mummies. According to local regulations, once a family's plot lease expires, about 20 years, they must pay roughly £95 to renew it. If they cannot pay, the bodies of their relatives are exhumed and sent to the museum for inspection. If the corpse is sufficiently dry and remarkable, it is selected for display. If not, it is moved to a mass grave on the outskirts of town. A cold, stark cycle of life and death continues in this way. Among the hundreds of mummies here, Remigio Leroy is the most famous. A French doctor who died while traveling in Guanajuato in the 19th century, his body was exhumed in 1865, astonishingly well preserved, with clothes still seemingly fresh. Local curiosity quickly turned into a sensation, prompting the government to establish the Guanajuato Mummy Museum in 1950, marking the beginning of one of the most chilling museums in the world. Not only adults are preserved here, some of the world's smallest mummies are on display. One is a 4-month-old fetus who died alongside its mother during a cholera outbreak in 1860. When found, the fetus remained in the mother's womb, like a moment frozen between life and death. Another touching mummy is baby Enrico, who passed away at 6 months old in 1999. When his plot lease expired, his body was moved to the museum, still dressed in a costume representing Saint Bartholomew, reflecting the tradition of praying for a child's peaceful passage to the afterlife. Entering the infant room, where tiny souls like the unnamed Little Saint Martin rest, one can feel the lingering sadness in every gaze. Parents had dressed their children in priestly outfits, placing a broom and rosary in their hands, hoping their children would find peace in the next world. The museum also displays numerous naked mummies with yellowed, dried skin, sunken eyes, and gaping faces, resembling zombies straight out of a Hollywood horror film. Yet despite the eeriness, the place exerts a strange allure. Perhaps it's because in that space, people don't just see death. They see stories of human life, the passage of time, and the immortality of memory. So, would you dare to step into Guanajuato, look into the eyes of these mummies and wonder, are they looking at me or have I wandered into their world? As for me, honestly, I wouldn't dare. Just seeing the photos and videos alone gives me chills. The Cedar Tomb in China, a nightmare that even grave robbers fear. Have you ever heard of a tomb so impenetrable that even professional grave robbers break into a cold sweat just approaching it? In China, such a tomb exists. It's known as the Cedar Tomb, famously dubbed the Nightmare of Grave Robbers. Hidden underground for thousands of years, it still earns the admiration of archaeologists worldwide. The story begins in 1974, when the Beijing city government was carrying out construction in Fengtai district. While digging foundations, workers discovered an unusually hollow section of earth. Curious, they dug deeper and were stunned to uncover a massive wooden chamber buried underground. Archaeologists were immediately called in. Upon excavation, they identified it as the burial chamber of Prince Liu Jian, who lived during the Han Dynasty. The chamber was built with extraordinary precision, 49 feet long, 33 feet wide, and 10 feet high, with walls nearly 6 feet thick. Every piece was made from solid cedar wood, meticulously stacked in perfect layers. Simply the quantity of wood is astonishing. Over 15,000 beams, each weighing hundreds of pounds, hand-carved and joined with millimeter precision. It is this special material that gave the tomb its name, the Cedar Tomb. Cedar wood is extremely rare in China and considered wood of the gods. Its core contains natural oils, making it resistant to decay, warping, and insect damage, even after millennia underground. Remarkably, it emits a faint sweet aroma, reminiscent of incense, giving the tomb a sacred, eerie atmosphere. Because of its durability and spiritual significance, the ancients believed that burying someone in cedar ensured their soul's eternal preservation. But the cost of constructing such a tomb was immense. To this day, archaeologists have discovered only 10 cedar tombs across China, each a subterranean masterpiece hiding secrets yet to be fully understood. Now you understand why it's called the nightmare of grave robbers. The tomb structure is so complex and sturdy that even experienced looters cannot breach the first wall. Each cedar beam weighs nearly 660 pounds, fitted tightly using intricate wood joinery techniques. Over thousands of years, the weight of the soil and the precision of the joints have made the entire structure as solid as a colossal stone. The only way inside is to remove each beam, but that's easier said than done. A single misstep could cause the chamber to collapse or jam, potentially burying the intruder alive. Legend has it that cedar tombs often have 3 to 4 layers of wooden walls, each following the next like a labyrinth of protection. Breaking through one wall only reveals another, thicker and more secure. Truly, it is a harsh test of greed and patience for anyone daring enough to try. In ancient China, building a tomb was not merely about burial. It was about protecting the soul and the authority of the ruler. They believed that when the body rested in a chamber encased in cedar, the wood of the gods, the soul would remain undisturbed, untainted, and eternal. Even today, standing before an excavated cedar tomb, researchers are astounded by the craftsmanship and engineering foresight of ancient builders. Every piece of wood, every joint, was executed with meticulous perfection. For those who once dreamed of plundering such a tomb, merely hearing the words cedar wood is enough to send shivers down their spine. So, the cedar tomb is not only the final resting place of Prince Liu Jian, it is also a timeless warning from history about human greed. Some secrets buried deep in the earth are not meant for everyone to reach. 3,000-year-old teen skeleton discovered in the Orkney Islands, Scotland. Amid the rugged scenery, with sea winds whispering across the golden sands of the Orkney Islands, Scotland, home to some of Europe's oldest known civilizations, an unexpected discovery sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. It wasn't a massive stone monument or glittering artifacts, but a nearly intact skeleton of a teenager who had lain beneath the sand for over 3,000 years. Imagine strolling along the beach, listening to the gentle crash of waves, when suddenly a few pale ribs emerge from the sand beneath your feet. That moment would surely make anyone's heart skip a beat. And that's exactly what happened to Carrie Brown and Ali Thorne, 2 British tour guides, not long ago. While leading a tour on an Orkney beach, they noticed 3 small ribs peeking through the sand. At first, they thought it might be animal bones. But upon closer inspection, their instincts told them they were looking at something extraordinary. They immediately contacted the local archaeological authorities. In a short time, a team of experts and archaeologists arrived, secured the site, and began excavation. As the sand layers were carefully removed, a nearly complete human skeleton gradually emerged, lying on its side as if in a peaceful sleep, marking one of the rarest archaeological discoveries in the region in decades. Preliminary analysis revealed the skeleton belonged to a teenager between 10 and 12 years old, buried approximately 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, during the Bronze Age. Despite millennia passing, the skeleton had retained a near-complete shape, something scientists described as miraculous. Many questions immediately arose. Why hadn't the bones decayed, despite being buried directly under coastal sand, constantly exposed to wind, water, and harsh weather? Did the unique environmental conditions of Orkney help preserve the remains, or did recent storms inadvertently reveal a secret hidden for thousands of years? While these questions remain unanswered, it's important to note that the Orkney Islands have long been renowned as the cradle of Northern European prehistoric civilization, boasting sites like Skara Brae and the Brodgar Stone Circle, often called the Stonehenge of Scotland. The discovery of this skeleton is more than just uncovering an ancient body. It's a precious piece of the puzzle that helps reconstruct the life, customs, and beliefs of people who lived here thousands of years ago. Another intriguing detail that caught the attention of archaeologists was the burial position. The teenager lay on their side with legs bent. Experts suggest this may have been a ritualistic burial, symbolizing a return to Mother Earth or rebirth in another world. The teen's gender, however, remains unknown due to insufficient data, adding further mystery and fascination to the find. Carrie Brown, the first to spot the skeleton, said, "We couldn't believe our eyes. Just a gust of wind, a shift in the sand, and history seemed to open its eyes at us." Indeed, each archaeological discovery like this deepens our understanding of the past while reminding modern humans of how small we are in the face of time. Every bone, every grain of sand carries a story of a lost era. Perhaps a child who once laughed on the beach, now transformed into a silent memory beneath the earth. Today, the skeleton is being carefully preserved by scientists for further study. While we may never know exactly who this boy or girl was or which tribe they belonged to, this discovery has awakened a fragment of the 3,000-year-old past, not by human hands, but by nature itself. Fascinating, isn't it? 32. Fully intact mummies, buried deep in Egypt. Did you know? It might seem that the mysteries of ancient Egypt have gradually closed with time, yet right in the sun-scorched deserts of Middle Egypt, a door to the past has just been opened, and what lies inside has truly astonished the world. Here's the story. At a depth of 26 feet below the ground in Minya Governorate, about 155 miles south of Cairo, archaeologists have excavated an ancient tomb containing at least 17 fully intact mummies. Initial estimates suggest that the total number of mummies could reach 32, including women, children, and even infants. So, what awaits us in that cold tomb? Who were the people buried there? Why was the cemetery placed so deep underground, hidden from human eyes for millennia? And could it have been the tomb of nobles or even pharaohs? The surprising answer is that this was a tomb for ordinary people, not kings or queens. And that makes it even more valuable. Most of the landmark discoveries in Egypt's archaeological history focus on the royal class, but the lives of ordinary people, their daily existence, their deaths, and the rituals they followed have long been a significant gap in our understanding of this brilliant civilization. This discovery is considered one of the largest tomb excavations for common people ever found, offering a rare opportunity to gain deeper insight into the daily life and beliefs of ancient Egyptians during lesser documented periods. The next pressing question is, from which era do these mummies come? Although their exact dating is still uncertain, Professor Mohammed Hamza, head of the archaeology department at Cairo University, suggests they may date to the period when Egypt was under Greek rule, after 332 BCE, when Alexander the Great conquered the land. That means these mummies have survived for over 2,000 years and remain astonishingly well preserved. Can you imagine it? People who once lived, breathed, and dreamed along the Nile now lie motionless beneath the earth, encased in clay and limestone coffins, neatly arranged in ancient tombs among faded manuscripts and even animal coffins, possibly cats, falcons, or other sacred creatures in Egyptian belief. And this is just the beginning of the excavation. Much more remains to be uncovered. Egypt's Minister of Antiquities, Khalid al-Inani, described the recent discoveries as a message from our ancestors, as if the people of the past are guiding us to find them, understand them, and restore Egypt to its former glory, not just in history, but also on the global tourism map. Indeed, Egypt's tourism industry was once the jewel of the Middle East, reaching 14.7 million international visitors in 2010. But after the 2011 uprising, tourism sharply declined, leaving the once crowded pyramids eerily empty. Today, new archaeological discoveries, from the statue of Pharaoh Ramses II in Heliopolis to a recently identified princess's tomb, and especially this collective mummy tomb in Minya, are helping reignite the world's passion for ancient Egypt, rekindling fascination with the mystical land that was the cradle of one of humanity's greatest civilizations. Do you feel a chill imagining the inside of that tomb? Dry skulls stacked atop one another, mummies lined up in rows, heads turned to one side as if waiting for something. A resurrection, or at least a gaze from future generations. These images are haunting and deeply thought-provoking, forcing us to reflect on how humans perceive life and death. The ancient Egyptians believed in life after death, that the soul would continue its journey in another world. They left behind everything, from mummies and texts to statues of gods and marks of devotion, like a living library buried underground, just waiting for us to uncover it. And now, as centuries of dust are slowly cleared away, light is finally beginning to illuminate the dark corners of history. 2,500-year-old princess mummy with modern-style tattoos discovered in Siberia. In 1993, archaeologists discovered the remarkably well-preserved mummy of a 2,500-year-old woman in the icy highlands of the Ukhak Plateau in Siberia, Russia. The body had been protected by permafrost and had never been disturbed by grave robbers. Archaeologists noted that the tomb was unusually complete and pristine, leaving them astonished at the preservation of the remains, so much so that the surrounding ice had not melted since it froze thousands of years ago. The discovery immediately captured the attention of researchers and the global public. The woman came to be known as the Ukhak Princess, or the Ice Maiden, becoming one of the most important archaeological finds of the 20th century. Based on dating and cultural evidence, experts concluded that she belonged to the Pazyryk culture, an ancient civilization notable in Siberia. Evidence includes her intricate tattoos, a hallmark of Pazyryk culture reflecting the unique aesthetic of the time. However, what made this tomb especially remarkable was not only the mummy itself, but also the burial context. She was buried alongside 6 horses, which was extremely rare for women in that society. At the time, only individuals with special social roles, such as shamans or spiritual leaders, were buried with horses to accompany them into the afterlife. Consequently, one of the most compelling hypotheses is that she may have been a shaman. This theory is supported by chemical tests that revealed traces of mercury and copper in her nasal cavity. It is believed she may have inhaled these substances to expand her consciousness and enter a trance-like state as part of spiritual rituals. Medical analysis also showed that the Ukhak princess was tall for her time, standing approximately 5 feet 5 inches to 5 feet 7 inches, but she suffered from serious health problems toward the end of her life. She had advanced stage breast cancer, which likely explains her frailty and physical deterioration before death. Despite her illness, she was not abandoned but accompanied by her family during migrations across the Ukhak Plateau's grazing lands. Remarkably, archaeologists also found cannabis in her tomb, which may have been used to alleviate pain from cancer and injuries. While her exact identity remains unknown, the mummy has become a symbol of the ancient Pazyryk culture, offering invaluable insights into their daily life, beliefs, and art. After being displayed for over 20 years at the Novosibirsk Archaeological and Ethnographic Museum, the mummy was transferred in 2012 to the Gorno-Altaysk National Museum, where the public can continue to marvel at and learn about this mysterious woman. If you ever have the chance, visiting the museum to see the Ukhak princess in person is an unforgettable experience. The 3,000-year-old tomb of a priest from Pacoampati, Peru. Have you ever imagined that, amid the arid highlands of northern Peru, there exists a tomb that makes you both marvel and shrug in disbelief at the mysteries it holds? Recently, archaeologists excavated such an ancient tomb, dating back roughly 3,000 years. What stunned them wasn't just its age, but the unique burial style of the person interred. The remains have been named the Pacoampati priest, after the highland region where the tomb was discovered. Right from the first layer of excavation, it was clear that this was no ordinary individual. He was buried beneath 6 layers of ash mixed with dark soil, surrounded by exquisitely decorated ceramic bowls, and adorned with ritualistic symbolic seals on his body. In other words, by modern standards, he could be called an ancient VIP, receiving rights reserved only for the top echelons of society. Yet what puzzled and intrigued archaeologists the most were 2 special seals along the top edge of the tomb. One bore a human face facing east, while the other depicted a jaguar facing west. Were the ancients trying to send a message like, "East to wake up, west to dine"? Of course, that's just a playful thought, but the arrangement was definitely intentional, likely holding ritualistic or spiritual significance that may take years to fully decode. Archaeologist Yuji Seki, head of the project, explained that the tomb itself is exceptionally large, measuring nearly 6.5 feet in diameter and about 3.3 feet deep. But it wasn't just the size that caught the team's attention. The burial posture demanded careful psychological analysis. The body was laid face down, with feet crossed, an extremely unusual position compared to most other burials in the region. It almost seems as if the Pacoampati priest wanted to say, "I will lie here comfortably, but my authority remains intact." The story's climax, however, is the tupu, a large pin used to fasten cloaks in Andean culture. Normally, the tupu is a female accessory, yet the tomb held a male individual. This proves he was not only an ancient VIP, but also a fashion icon of his era, breaking all conventional rules of clothing and status. If he lived today, he would likely be setting trends thousands of years ahead of his time. Overall, from the 6 layers of ash, the ceramic bowls, the symbolic seals, to the tupu, the tomb tells a story of power, belief, and ancient fashion. This isn't just a burial site, it's a living museum, where every detail raises the question, who was this priest, and what was he thinking when planning his burial rituals? Imagine if the Paco Ampati priest lived in the 21st century. Would he become a powerful religious leader, or a style influencer with millions of followers? The answer may still lie buried among the layers of ash, but one thing is certain. This tomb will leave anyone interested in history, culture, or ancient fashion absolutely awestruck. Airplane wreckage and human remains revealed by melting ice solve a 50-year mystery. You probably already know that Switzerland is famous for its snow-covered mountains, majestic glaciers, and stunning ski resorts. Among them, the Chesgen Glacier in Valais, in the southern part of the country, has long attracted visitors eager to explore its icy expanse. But you might be surprised to learn that this glacier holds a mystery that had been asleep for nearly 50 years. The story began when 2 French tourists decided to adventure through the Chesgen Glacier area. While admiring the scenery, they unexpectedly discovered the remains of 2 people along with an airplane wreck buried under the thick ice. You can imagine how they must have felt. Equal parts terrified and curious, caught between screaming in shock or taking a selfie with a half-century-old mystery. Once the discovery was reported, Dario Andin-Matten, manager of the nearby Britannia hut, quickly took action. Based on the condition of the skeletons, he estimated that the victims may have perished sometime between the 1970s and 1980s. That means they had lain quietly beneath the ice for almost half a century, silently witnessing the changes around them until the glacier melted and revealed their secret to the world. Interestingly, the location of the remains was far from random. According to Dario, they were found near an old path that had been out of use for about 10 years. One could say that nature and time had carefully concealed them, like a frozen museum guarding a secret that no one was allowed to know. This, however, wasn't the first time Switzerland's glaciers revealed a hidden story. Previously, another set of human remains was discovered on a glacier near the Zermatt ski resort, right at the foot of the Matterhorn, a spot well known to skiing enthusiasts. Immediately after the discovery, the skeletons and airplane wreckage were removed from the glacier to ensure safety and facilitate investigation. The Swiss police conducted DNA analysis, a process taking several days, to identify the victims. This work not only solved a decades-old mystery, but also restored the identities of people who had been forgotten, trapped in ice for half a century. The story evokes both shivers and amusement in the sense of, the ice melts and history rises up, seemingly saying, "Don't think I've been sleeping, unaware, folks." More importantly, it serves as a reminder that nature always holds the reins. When glaciers melt, they not only reveal breathtaking landscapes, but sometimes uncover mysteries, forcing humanity to confront the past unexpectedly. So, if one day you explore the Chesgen Glacier and see shadows of the past emerging, what would you do? Panic, get curious, or take a selfie with a 50-year-old mystery? Whichever you choose, that feeling is guaranteed to be unforgettable. Mysterious mummies reveal secrets that even geniuses can't solve. It might sound like something out of a movie, but in 2014, along the Nile River in northern Sudan, archaeologists were stunned to uncover a very unusual mummy. What made it extraordinary wasn't its age or clothing, but a tattoo on the mummy's thigh. And this wasn't a floral design or a series of cryptic symbols. Upon careful examination, experts discovered that the tattoo was written in ancient Greek, and when transliterated, it read, Michael. At this point, anyone would ask, how could a mummy in Sudan, over 1,300 years old, have a name in Greek? Archaeologists at the British Museum believe this was not just decorative. The tattoo likely had a religious purpose, intended to protect the deceased's soul on its journey to the afterlife. Placed within the context of ancient culture, where spirituality and safeguarding the soul were central to burial rituals, this raises intriguing questions. Was Michael a cultural bridge between civilizations, or simply a local religious symbol? The answer remains unknown, inviting us to ponder the mysterious connections between ancient cultures. But the mysteries don't stop there. Travel back to 1915 in Egypt, when archaeologists excavated a looted tomb at Deir el-Bersha and found a mummified head without a body. dating back 4,000 years. It sounds like a scene from a horror film, but it wasn't until 2018, with the help of the FBI and DNA analysis from the mummy's teeth, that the head was finally identified as belonging to Jehutinakht, an ancient Egyptian governor. Before the DNA results, numerous theories circulated, leaving modern observers amazed at the mummification methods and burial rituals of ancient Egyptians. Mummies aren't just for adults, they can involve children too. In Nyarlathotep, Hungary, archaeologists discovered the ribs, shoulders, and arm of a mummified child, still holding a corroded coin in its hand within an ancient tomb. The burial dates back to the 12th to 16th centuries, and the method was unusual. The body was placed inside a jar with a coin, reflecting the belief that the money would help the soul in the afterlife. Dr. Janos Balaz noted that the child was either premature or died shortly after birth, standing about 11 to 13 inches tall and weighing only 1 to 2 pounds. Moreover, this mummy had the highest copper content ever found in a mummified body, opening a new avenue for research on ancient embalming techniques. Looking at all three cases, we see that mummies are far more than dried remains. They are living stories, carrying beliefs, faith, and mysteries that transcend time. From the Greek tattoo in Sudan, to the Egyptian governor's severed head, to the Hungarian child clutching a coin, each discovery is like a puzzle that challenges even geniuses, forcing us to ask, what did ancient people think, believe, and desire? So next time you hear about a mummy, don't just picture a cold museum display. Think of mummies as historical witnesses, telling stories and stretching your imagination, turning every archaeological discovery into an unforgettable adventure. The 36,000-year-old bison mummy that tells a story of the Ice Age. In the late 1890s, while all of North America was swept up in the Klondike Gold Rush, hundreds of thousands of people flocked to Alaska and northwestern Canada hoping to strike it rich. Some were lucky and found gold, while many others went home empty-handed. But few could have imagined that, amid the gold frenzy, a discovery of monumental significance, completely unrelated to gold, was about to be made. The Rumans family, like countless other gold seekers, stumbled upon the naturally preserved mummified remains of a giant bison near Fairbanks, Alaska. They named it Blue Babe, inspired by the legendary Babe the Blue Ox of lumberjack folklore about Paul Bunyan. At first, the Rumans didn't know what to do with this icebound monster, so they immediately contacted archaeology professor Dale Guthrie from the University of Alaska. But as you might guess, excavating a heavily frozen mummy isn't a task completed overnight. It took 3 years for the research team to carefully remove the layers of ice and bring Blue Babe out of the ground. Once freed, they realized they were looking at one of the most perfectly preserved specimens of bison ever found. Using radiocarbon dating, scientists determined that the bison had died 36,000 years ago. Its neck and back bore multiple horrifying wounds, likely inflicted by an American lion, a species that went extinct during the Ice Age. It seems the bison managed to escape the lion's attack, but eventually succumbed to the harsh winter, with its body preserved by layers of ice for tens of thousands of years until it was excavated in 1979. Blue Babe belonged to the species Bison priscus, a type of steppe bison that roamed Europe, Central Asia, and North America at the end of the Ice Age. Its size was massive, rivaling mammoths, lions, and saber-toothed tigers. Although Bison priscus went extinct about 8,000 years ago, its relatives survive today, such as bison, which are still large but smaller than Blue Babe, standing about 9 feet tall and weighing over 1,300 pounds. When Blue Babe was first removed from the ice, the team noticed signs of decay. Concerned that this priceless specimen would not survive for further research, they decided to separate the meat, blood, and marrow to preserve the remaining bones permanently at the Alaska Museum of the North. With the help of taxidermy expert Erik Granqvist from the University of Helsinki, Finland, Blue Babe was successfully preserved and put on display in 1984, standing proudly at the museum. The most amusing part of the story came from a playful idea by the research team. They kept some of Blue Babe's frozen meat to cook and try. Can you guess what happened? It was edible. Dale Guthrie even shared, "The meat was tough but fine to eat, still tasted like normal beef. No one got sick or felt nauseous." Imagine that, eating a bison over 36,000 years old. It's like stepping into a time travel adventure. Today, Blue Babe still stands there, majestically telling the story of the Ice Age, of American lions, and of a giant bison, reminding us that in the pursuit of history, treasures aren't always gold. They can be extinct creatures preserved under ice. If you're curious to see what this 36,000-year-old bison looked like, you can visit the Museum of the North at the University of Alaska to see it in person. The 1,800-year-old blood curse on an ancient tomb in Israel. In 2023, in the historic desert of Beit She'arim, Israel, archaeologists accidentally discovered an extremely mysterious ancient tomb inside a small cave deep within the old cemetery. This small cave was actually a side chamber of a larger cave, known since 2022, but it wasn't explored until a year later. Truly a modern-day Indiana Jones-style adventure. What left everyone stunned was a bright red inscription, as if written in blood, carved into the tomb wall, a rare and chilling sight. Experts say the inscription appears to be a real curse, warning anyone who dares to open the tomb. Yaakov Hager curses anyone who opens this tomb, so no one shall open it for 60 years. The number 60 was written in a different alphabet, possibly marking the age of the deceased. Fortunately, the red lettering was not blood but red ink, yet it still sends shivers down the spine. Remarkably, this is one of only 2 inscriptions discovered at Beit She'arim in the past 65 years, and it is the only one that identifies a person who converted to another religion. Archaeologists estimate the tomb is roughly 1,800 years old, dating from the late Roman Empire to the early Byzantine period, a time when Christianity was spreading rapidly, but some people were still converting to Judaism. From the inscription, researchers identified Yaakov Hager as the tomb's owner, a man who had fully converted to Judaism. Interestingly, the word proselyte was carved in Greek, directly above the tomb, signifying a religious convert. This highlights not only the cultural and religious interactions of the time, but also sheds light on the spiritual life of the Jews and their communities. Some Jewish groups feared God, but did not follow all traditional commandments, while others, like Yaakov Hager, fully embraced a new religious path. Beit She'arim was not an ordinary cemetery. It was an international burial site, where Jews from across the eastern regions were brought to rest. However, the remains of Yaakov Hager have not yet been found, possibly looted by tomb raiders. If the curse were real, those intruders might have reason to regret their actions. Another point of fascination for archaeologists is the location of the tombstone in this newly discovered side chamber, a spot previously unknown. It stands as an 1,800-year-old hidden mystery, showcasing not only the craftsmanship of the burial, but also the respect and fear the ancients held for death and the soul. Every time people look at the glowing red inscription, it's easy to imagine curious and daring intruders entering the cave, hearing the wind whistling through the rocks, and wondering if the curse still holds. This is far more than a standard archaeological discovery. It is a story of religion, belief, and the haunting power of history. For anyone curious about the secrets of Israel's ancient tombs, this is a vivid reminder that the past can be more chilling and mysterious than any horror movie. A blazing red warning, a religious convert, and a tomb that has never been opened, all come together to create a story that makes anyone interested in archaeology pause and reflect. The giant treasure in the bottomless cave in China. In 1983, a construction crew in Guangzhou, China, unexpectedly discovered a bottomless cave while working on Xianggang Mountain. The workers on site, seeing the huge dark cave, dared not enter and immediately alerted the local archaeological team. Before beginning construction in the Xianggang Mountain area, the crew had already researched the mountain extensively. According to local lore, the area was rumored to have been a military fortress during wartime and was also said to hide rare and ancient treasures of China. During the imperial era, many generals chose Xianggang Mountain as the site for their tombs, believing it would protect the prosperity of their families for generations. Therefore, the construction team had anticipated that interesting discoveries might be made in the area. However, finding a huge bottomless cave still surprised everyone. Those present were filled with curiosity, constantly speculating about the cave. Some believed that it could be a treasure trove left by ancient people, where even a random object inside might be worth a fortune. Yet, because the cave was so vast and dark, no one dared to venture deep inside. Everyone stayed outside, waiting for the contractor to notify the nearby archaeological team. After securing the site and conducting a preliminary survey of the bottomless cave, the archaeologists realized that it resembled a tomb of exceptional value. The news quickly spread, and everyone at the site became excited, knowing that if it really was an ancient tomb, the cave would have immense archaeological significance. To properly excavate the tomb, the archaeologists requested additional staff and professional tools from their superiors. Soon, the large tomb emerged, revealing a spacious interior. Because it had existed for so long, some walls inside were crumbling, but based on the inscriptions, researchers compared them with ancient texts and concluded that the writing was similar to Western Han Dynasty script. At this point, the archaeological team split into two groups. One group continued excavation, while the other consulted historical records. After several days of work, the entire tomb was fully uncovered. Not only was it large in scale, but the items inside were of exceptionally high quality. Among the discoveries were a giant bronze tripod cauldron, a massive bronze screen, and numerous valuable treasures. Clearly, the tomb had never been disturbed by thieves and was very well preserved, which thrilled the archaeologists. In addition to the tripod and bronze screen, the team also found weapons and armor, swords, firearms, spears, intricately gold-gilded armor, and a chariot placed at the center of the tomb. However, based on these artifacts alone, the archaeologists could not yet identify the tomb's owner. It wasn't until they discovered a square gold seal among the buried items that the owner's identity became clear. The seal bore the inscription, "Seal of Emperor Wen," proving that it belonged to Emperor Wen, the title of King Zhao Hu, the second ruler of Nanyue and the son of Zhao Tuo, the kingdom's first king. In summary, this discovery greatly excited China's archaeological community. The fact that so many cultural relics could be preserved intact, without being looted or destroyed, is highly significant. It serves as tangible evidence of the cultural heritage of the region, evidence of the lives of ancient peoples. 900-year-old princess mummy, found in the Arctic ice. A stunning archaeological discovery has just been announced at the Zilini Yar burial site near Salakard, a remote area close to the Arctic Circle. Russian scientists have uncovered the mummy of an adult princess, preserved almost perfectly after being buried for over 900 years beneath permafrost. What makes this discovery particularly remarkable is that the princess is the only female in the cemetery, surrounded by more than 30 male graves. Her mummy was placed in a bronze coffin lined with animal hides, and her head is astonishingly well preserved, with teeth, hair, and eyelids still intact. This is the only female mummy found in a cemetery primarily designated for men, leaving archaeologists both intrigued and puzzled. Although her body is not as well preserved as her head, the level of preservation still provides valuable insights into the life of people in the past. Scientists estimate that the princess lived in the 12th century, during a hunting and fishing civilization in the Arctic. Interestingly, despite being buried in this frigid region, the princess shows connections to the ancient Persian civilization, evidenced by artifacts such as a Persian bronze bowl found at the burial site. Archaeologist Alexander Gusev, from the Russian Arctic Research Center, stated that the team immediately recognized the mummy as female, which completely changed their understanding of the cemetery. Previously, they believed only men were buried here, but now they have confirmed the presence of a woman. The high level of preservation is remarkable, with internal organs still intact, making this an outstanding discovery for their research. This find not only challenges previous assumptions about the Zilini Yar cemetery, but also raises new questions about ancient Arctic societies, where historical mysteries continue to captivate modern researchers. Dear friends, this brings our journey exploring the mystery of the 900-year-old mummy to a close for today. Which of the discoveries we've covered impressed you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to give ancient history a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any other fascinating discoveries. For now, goodbye and see you next time.